Chapter 779. It was noon. Along with a hurried whistle coming from the vicinity, Gao Hongxing, the commander of the Chinese garrison, strode over from the distance. After approaching the 5 people, he said with a solemn face, "The teams from various countries have begun to assemble. The destination is the East Coast, and the submarine is already waiting there." "Which country does the submarine belong to, Commander Gao?" asked Zhu Long. "The M Nation," answered Gao Hongxing. "But the soldiers from various countries are following the submarine, so it's absolutely impossible for the M Nation to do anything to it." Zhu Long slowly nodded and said, "Enough benefits will make people lose their minds. The things inside the 3-star vestige will also drive many people crazy. Commander Gao, I hope you pay attention to your safety up there and keep in touch with the domestic side. Our country's warships are stationed 150 nautical miles away," said Gao Hongxing with a grin. "There are also many submarines lurking in the depths of the seabed. Our Southern Army is also conducting military exercises in the South China Sea. Unless the leaders of other countries lose their minds, no one will dare to act rashly. However, I'll take your warning seriously." Tan Xiu's group of 5 was escorted by dozens of military soldiers and quickly arrived at the destination. When they arrived at the coastline, Tan Xiu's group of 5 finally saw the members from the other countries. "Huh!" Tang Xiu's eyes swept over the 5 members of the Japanese team with a look of surprise on his face. Never once did he expect that he would see 2 acquaintances among the 5 members of the Japanese team. He was only a bit surprised to see Kawako Yamamoto, but seeing Cheng Shueme was far beyond his expectation. At this moment, Kawako and Cheng Shueme also saw Tan Xiu. Kawako was still fine since she couldn't expose her relationship with Tan Xiu, so she only made a very subtle gesture to show her respect, whereas Cheng Shueme quickly lowered her head with a flustered look flashing in her eyes. Tan Xiu knew that Cheng Shueme had gone missing 6 months ago, causing her younger sister, Cheng Yannan, to be bullied miserably at home. Back then he was sure that Cheng Shueme's life was not in danger, but that she was carrying out some kind of secret mission. Now that he saw her, Tan Xiu finally confirmed his judgment. Tan Xiu retracted his gaze and did not greet them. Instead, he obediently followed behind Zhu Long and the other 3. He watched as Gao Hongxing communicated with a few foreign men. The 5 of them formed a group and stood near the members of the other countries. "Log in." At 12 o'clock sharp, a burly white man shouted in a deep voice. Immediately, 50 members from 10 countries entered the submarine. Under the guidance of the people inside, they came to the interior of the submarine. Half an hour later, the submarine stopped somewhere at the bottom of the sea. As the exit docked with a certain entrance of the ruins, 50 members from various countries finally entered the ruins through the docking channel. "It's spectacular and magical. We should be several hundred meters deep in the ocean right now, but we can't feel any pressure at all. If I'm not mistaken, there must be an anti-gravity device inside." Fire Devil, still carrying his birdcage in his hand and carrying a military bag on his back, sighed with emotion. Tan Xiu nodded lightly. After passing through the channel, he saw what seemed to be a small city in front of him. There were buildings of various shapes and sizes, ranging from hundreds of meters high to tens of meters low. The overall plan was perfect. However, there seemed to be ripples surging in the air, making the buildings look blurry and not very real. "That's a mirage, a scene simulated by technology." Zhu Long glanced at Tan Xiu and lightly said. Tan Xiu was taken aback. When he instantly released his spiritual sense and probed ahead, he found that those were all virtual scenes. Behind the virtual scene were passages that extended in all directions. These passages extended into the distance, and it was impossible to know where they ended. "Don't waste time. Let's go in first." When the 5 of them passed through the vague air fluctuations and stood in front of dozens of passages, Zhu Long found that the members of the other countries had locked onto a passage and quickly disappeared into it. He immediately said in a deep voice, "Which one shall we choose, Chief Zhu Long?" asked Fire Devil. "Look for the entrance marked 3 in the passage," said Zhu Long. "We'll be able to correctly follow the route marked on the map if we follow the footsteps of our country." "Over there." Tan Xiu pointed to a passage on the left and strode over. Zhu Long stared blankly for a moment before an angry look appeared on his face. He hesitated for a moment and then followed. When the 5 of them came to the entrance of the passage, they found a 3 engraved on one side of the steel wall. How did you know? A glint flashed in Zhu Long's eyes as he stared at Tan Xiao and asked. Tan Xiao couldn't tell Zhu Long what he observed with his spiritual sense, so he made up a lie. When I saw Duanmu Lin, I chatted with him and he told me about it. I just judged that it should be here. That's right, I have a special ability that's quite strong in terms of perception. Perception? Zhu Long stared blankly and instantly understood why Tan Xiao could get the qualification to explore the 3-star vestige. Having a superhuman perception would be of great help when encountering danger. It would even give him an advantage when exploring the vestige. After the 5 of them passed through the passage that was hundreds of meters long, they saw the steel space inside. It was just like those foreign sci-fi blockbusters. There were a lot of high-tech products in the steel space, including colorful indicator lights, various unintelligible symbols, and some virtual 3-dimensional pictures. Inside the steel space, there were a lot of steel buildings connected to the roads, and the doors of each building were tightly closed. There are 2 robots 50 meters ahead. Those 2 robots were known as intelligent robots, and they were very aggressive. According to the people who escaped from here, half of them were shot and killed by these 2 robots after they entered this place. Zhu Long knitted his brows tightly as his gaze swept across the 2 robots. His mind was silently pondering how to get past them easily. After all, they had to pass through this passage if they wanted to go deeper. I have an idea, but I don't know if it's feasible, said Tan Xiao. You have an idea? Zhu Long frowned. Tell me about it. This robot is, after all, programmed, said Tang Xiao. Even if these 2 are intelligent robots, they will lose their mobility as long as their internal structure is destroyed. Aquababe's ability should be able to control water, right? As long as we pour water on these 2 robots and let Electrolady release lightning to destroy them, we should be able to cause internal problems. Water? Electricity? Zhu Long's eyes lit up and he immediately clapped and exclaimed in admiration, that's right. Water can conduct electricity, so how can it flow into the robot's internal structure? Even if the robot's internal structure is waterproof, electric current can still cause damage. Aquababe, Electrolady, you too try it. Aquababe took a few steps forward and drew a circle in midair with her arms. Suddenly, the water attribute in the air continued to condense. In just a short moment, a round water millstone was formed. As she waved her arms, the millstone turned into 2 water dragons that rushed towards the 2 robots standing next to the wall. Intruder detected. No marks. Enemy determined. Shoot. The voice came out from the 2 robots' mouths at the same time. Along with their activation, 2 lasers shot out from their configured weapons and instantly pierced through the 2 water dragons. Whoosh! The water dragons didn't receive much interference and directly hit the 2 robots. As they were repelled a few steps back, the water directly dispersed above them and drenched them. A chilling light flashed in Electrolady's eyes. She flicked her fingers and formed an electric current that continuously shot toward the 2 robots. The moment the electric current hit the robots, sparks splashed everywhere. The 2 robots that shot the lasers suddenly issued a rumbling sound and black smoke. It's done. Finally, the 2 robots fell to the ground and the activation program was extinguished. A satisfied look appeared on Zhu Long's face. He turned to look at Tan Xiao and said, "Are not bad. At least you have a brain." Tan Xiao blushed with shame. He really couldn't tell that Zhu Long was praising him. Aquababe's eyes flashed with an extraordinary splendor as she whispered, "Actually, the combination of water and electricity can indeed create a special effect. The principle is very simple and many people know about it, but we never thought about it. Tan Xiao is very powerful. I'm sure we'll get a good harvest if he's in our team." "Don't talk too much, Aquababe," said Fire Devil without being salty nor light. "Besides, everyone has their own aspirations. We have no right to interfere if he wants to stay or leave." Aquababe glanced at Fire Devil with dissatisfaction and lowered her head without saying anything. The 5 of them continued to move forward. As they approached the door of the first building, Zhu Long said, "There's nothing special in the 16 rooms on both sides and front. We need to start searching from the 17th room. If there's nothing special, we'll pass through the large number of steel statues in front and go straight to the door inside." Wait a minute. Tan Xiao strode to the side of the two robots. He pulled out the Mitsubishi Army knife and began to dissect them along the gaps between the robots. Soon after, he took out two glittering and translucent crystals from the two robots and threw one to Zhu Long. He took the other one and said, "This thing has great research value. If our country's researchers can thoroughly study this energy stone, our country's scientific and technological level will have a qualitative leap in the future." After saying that, he hesitated for a moment before he took out a cigarette and lit it up. After taking 2 puffs, he continued, "I think it's necessary to study the internal motherboards and energy circuits of these 2 robots. You can take the decomposed materials from one of them and bring it back when you leave this place." That makes sense. Even if Zhu Long was dissatisfied with Tan Xiao, his dissatisfaction was getting less and less at the moment. Chapter 780. Zhu Long originally thought that his immediate superior's decision to send Tan Xiao to their team was simply a farce. Such a person of little value would only affect the team's overall strength and wouldn't play any role. But these 2 ideas not only saved them a lot of trouble but also made them realize that they had gained something. However, he was afraid that Tan Xiao would become arrogant and conceited, so he just flatly agreed with him and put the robot parts into the military bag. Due to the weight issue, he discussed with Fire Devil for a while and decided to hide the military bag containing the robot parts in a hidden corner of the corridor until they returned. "Let's move forward." Zhu Long took a deep breath and took the lead to walk inside. At this moment, he had cautiously taken out the mini pistol and coldly glanced around. Even the slightest movement could arouse his vigilance. A large number of steel-cast statues were placed in the spacious hall ahead. The moment Tan Xiao's eyes fell on those statues, his expression immediately changed and a strange look appeared in his eyes. These statues seemed to be placed randomly, but those who were proficient in arrays could easily see that the placement of all the statues was very particular and even formed a simple array. It was a maze array. As long as someone entered these statues, they would be lost in the array unless they were extremely lucky and happened to take the right route. Of course, the probability of such a thing happening was even smaller than winning 5 million yuan in the lottery. Technology? Array? The combination of the products of these 2 different civilizations shows that the civilization of the race that left behind this 3-star vestige has reached a very high level. Though it's still far from those advanced civilizations, it's still countless times higher than Earth's civilization. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and looked at Zhu Long, who was about to enter the maze array. He instantly grabbed his arm and said in a deep voice, "Let me lead the way since the vestige is full of dangers." Sometimes, it's quite useful to have a strong perception and be able to sense danger in advance. Zhu Long struggled hard the moment Tan Xiao grabbed his arm. What shocked him was that he could easily get rid of it if an ordinary person grabbed him. But Tan Xiao's hand was like an iron clamp that made his arm ache faintly when he struggled. Such power! Zhu Long sighed inwardly and nodded silently, allowing Tan Xiao to walk in front. Fire Devil approached Zhu Long and looked at Tan Xiao's back, asking in a low voice, "Boss Zhu Long, can this kid do it? We don't need cannon fodder." Zhu Long said, "We'll know after we walk around. Let's not be too far away from him. If there's any danger ahead, we'll immediately save him." In front, Tan Xiao suddenly came to a halt. He looked at the 4 people behind him and said in a deep voice, "I can sense danger. We seem to have encountered something powerful. Therefore, you must follow behind me and do not fall behind easily. Also, look at my footprints clearly. It's best to follow them." Zhu Long was very cautious, so he nodded heavily after Tan Xiao finished speaking. Electrolady and Aquababe, who never joked in the face of danger, also nodded to indicate that they wouldn't act recklessly. On the other hand, the Fire Demon, who was carrying a military bag and holding a birdcage, had a hint of disdain in his eyes. The space where the statues were placed was very large, about the size of a regular football field. Only a few of these statues were in human form, but most of them were in the form of various wild beasts, such as jackals, wolves, tigers, leopards, eagles, swallows, pigeons, and birds. Fire Devil was walking at the back of the 5 people. His eyes suddenly flickered and he immediately walked toward a statue a few meters away to the left. The statue looked like an earthworm, but strangely, it had 8 legs. There were many special patterns on its back that were dyed with various colors. Don't move. At the forefront, Tan Xiu was keenly aware of the fire demon's movement. He turned around and shouted in a low voice as he instantly pounced toward the fire demon. What made him angry was that the position of the statue in front of him instantly changed after he left the correct path of the array. As his footsteps came to a halt, his keen eyes looked around and his fist filled with surging power fiercely slammed the ground 3 meters to the left. Boom! Layers of ripples appeared in the air as though the space was distorted. In Tan Xiu's sight, the position of the statue was restored to its previous position. It was at this moment that his figure flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared next to the fire demon, who had a dazed expression on his face. Tan Xiu grabbed the fire demon's shoulder and forcefully pulled him back behind Aquababe. What just happened was... The fire demon looked around with a puzzled expression before his eyes finally fell on Tan Xiu next to him. I originally thought that your ability user team was very disciplined and very cautious in this dangerous vestige, said Tan Xiu indifferently. But I didn't expect you to be so arrogant and stupid. You better behave yourself if you don't want to get lost in this place forever. This is the first time, and I won't save you the second time. After saying that, he quickly brushed past Aquababe, Electro Lady, and Zhu Long and returned to the front. Even though Zhu Long and the other 2 looked puzzled, he still didn't explain. The fire demon's complexion instantly turned red. The strange scene just now made him recall it and immediately gave rise to fear inside. However, Tan Xiu's merciless reprimand made him feel greatly humiliated. If it weren't for what Tan Xiu had just done, he would have slapped Tan Xiu to death. Mind your own business. I can solve it with my own strength even if I encounter a crisis, said the fire demon indignantly. Tan Xiu ignored him and continued to move forward. He had made up his mind that he would never save the fire demon again if he was swayed by his emotions and insisted on deviating from the route he chose. Zhu Long frowned and looked at Tan Xiu's back, asking, "What just happened, Tan Xiu?" "Actually, I have a special ability," said Tan Xiu without looking back. "Well, I actually have a special ability, which is to understand feng shui arrays. This space full of statues has been arranged into an array. Moreover, it's the most troublesome maze array. Unless someone has the strength to break the array with brute force, the chance of survival is minuscule if you don't understand arrays and fall into it." Maze array? Proficient in arrays? Zhu Long's complexion drastically changed and he gasped inwardly. Tan Xiu's words made him faintly feel that this guy was somewhat unfathomable. Electro Lady and Aquababe looked at each other with shocked expressions on their faces. They were all ability users and had a high level of contact with people, so they naturally knew some things about feng shui arrays. It was just that they never expected that Tan Xiu would be proficient in feng shui arrays. Could it be he's a powerful feng shui master? No wonder. No wonder the great leader, Duanmu Lin, actually forced Tang Xiu to join the team. He even agreed to Tang Xiu's excessive requests. Fire Devil's complexion turned ugly at this moment. Tan Xiu, whom he had always despised, had saved him once, which made him feel disgraced. Now, he even had the identity of a feng shui master who was proficient in feng shui arrays. It was hard for him to accept it for a while. 7 or 8 minutes later, Tan Xiu led the 4 people through the statue space and came to a 3-meter-wide passage. Looking at the steel gate in front of them, which completely blocked the passage, Tan Xiu's spiritual sense instantly enveloped the inside. Zhu Long looked at Tan Xiu with a complicated expression. He understood that it was all thanks to Tan Xiu that everyone could come here so easily. It must be noted that nearly 100 people from China came to the 3-star vestige last time, but they only made it this far. Less than 20 people made it here alive, and only 1 person was lucky enough to pass through the statue space and the robot's attack and escaped with serious injuries. Therefore, his contempt for Tan Xiu had completely disappeared. Although he thought that Tan Xiu's combat power was not good, these special abilities were what they needed more. Tan Xiao, it's this gate. If we want to move forward, we must find a way to open this gate. Otherwise, we won't gain much from coming here. Zhu Long's eyes flickered, hoping that Tan Xiao could find a way to open the gate. Tan Xiao smiled indifferently. Through the observation of his spiritual sense, he had already found a way to open the steel gate. However, in order not to expose his special abilities, he deliberately looked around and finally stopped in front of some patterns engraved on the steel wall. It was a dragon-shaped pattern. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to tell that the dragon was missing an eye. To be precise, it was missing an eyeball. Under the gaze of Zhu Long and the other three, Tan Xiao reached out and pressed the missing eyeball. Kacha! Along with a mechanical sound, the tightly stitched steel gate slowly split open from the middle and a wide corridor appeared in front of everyone. Zhu Long and the others were overjoyed and looked at Tan Xiao with a bit of admiration in their eyes. However, when they saw the situation in the corridor inside, the joy on their faces instantly froze. Subconsciously, they even retreated a few steps back like snakes or scorpions blocking their way, as though they were facing a formidable enemy. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows as he looked at the robots on both sides of the corridor. After a careful count, he found that there were 18 robots in the tens of meters long corridor ahead. At the foot of each robot was a robot dog. Electrolady, Aquababe, continue. Tan Xiao dodged to the side with a relatively calm expression. Electrolady and Aquababe exchanged glances and nodded to each other. Then, one condensed a water dragon, while the other released lightning and quickly rushed toward the robots. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 18 robots and 18 robot dogs were activated with sparks splashing in all directions and quickly stopped. Choking black smoke drifted in the corridor. Tan Xiao paced a few steps forward and lightly said, "Let's keep moving forward. If my guess is correct, there should be something interesting ahead." Chapter 781. At the end of the steel passageway was a dreamlike special space with colorful virtual images decorating it like a sci-fi world. The most eye-catching thing was the strange subtitles that surged like waves on the walls of the space. The words on the blue subtitles didn't belong to any language on Earth. Die. Flames pierced through the light curtain and rushed towards several figures like violent fire dragons. Behind the dozen or so fire dragons, two male twins were forming hand seals and waving their wands, trying to incinerate the figures. Roar! The three beastmen were covered in thick fur, and their eyes shone with a lush green light. Their sharp claws seemed to be able to tear the space apart, and a violent force covered the sky and the earth as it pressed forward, forcibly withstanding the dozen or so fire dragons' attacks. Behind them, two orcs covered in wounds were lying on the ground, barely breathing. There was a bowl-sized hole in their abdomen with a large amount of blood flowing out. Their vitality was gradually drained away along with the blood. Interesting. It's people from both Country BX and Country YDL. Zhu Long hid behind a layer of light curtain and quietly watched the battle in the distance. Behind him, Aquababe and Electrolady were vigilant, staring at the two sides of the battle. Fire Demon's expression was a little solemn. His eyes lingered on the twin men, silently measuring the gap between him and them. He was also a fire elemental ability user and could manipulate flames, but compared to the two people in front of him, he found that he couldn't compare at all. Tan Xiao's focus was not on the two sides of the battle, but the crystal ball next to a Country BX woman. The crystal ball was crystal clear, and there was a bolt of lightning shuttling inside. Tan Xiao clearly saw that it wasn't a bolt of lightning that was sealed in the crystal ball, but a golden bug the size of a fingernail. Suddenly, Tan Xiao's expression shifted because he found another passage entrance and someone else had entered it. Because he had met them outside, Tan Xiao knew that they were from Country Y. Laser beams shot out from the guns in the hands of the 5 people from Country Y. They accurately hit the 2 fire elemental ability users and the 3 orcs from Country Y. Bastard. Damn it. Both sides in the battle were caught off guard. One of the BX twin fire ability users died instantly as his head was pierced through. The other used his arm to block the attack in time, but he also paid the price of his arm. As for the 3 beastmen, 2 of them were directly shot dead, while the other one had his chest pierced. He staggered back a dozen steps before falling beside his companion. Kill them all. 5 arcanists from Country Y held laser guns and shot rapidly as they pounced on both sides. Soon, all 5 orcs from Country YDL were dead, and the remaining fire arcanist from Country BX was also besieged and killed. Behind the screen, Zhu Long lowered his voice and said, "I'm afraid the remaining arcanist from BX won't be able to hold on for long. I really didn't expect that not long after we entered the 3-star vestige, members of 2 countries would die here." Electrolady said in a deep voice, "Die. The more of them die, the less danger we'll be in. It's a pity that the BX and YDL people are too useless, else we'll be able to reap the benefits when they fight to the death with Country Y. It'll be even more perfect if someone from another country comes." Bush, bush, bush. As Electrolady's voice faded away, 3 distressed figures rushed in from one of the passageways. They were none other than Kawako from Japan, a middle-aged Japanese man, and the heavily injured Ching Shueme. Tan Shio's expression slightly changed. He couldn't watch Kawako and Ching Shueme die here. Just as he was about to act, 4 figures flashed lightning fast from the passageway they had just rushed out. Although the 4 of them were also injured, their injuries weren't serious. Country D. Zhu Long's expression shifted and a gloating look appeared on his face. Nearly every Chinese hated the Japanese for the enmity between China and Japan. At this moment, seeing the last 3 people from Japan in such a distressed state, he secretly hoped that the battle inside would be more intense. It would be best if all the Japanese people would die. The 5 people from Japan joined forces and finally killed the BX woman before surrounding the crystal ball. They were no longer in a hurry to act and just watched the 3 people from Japan and the 4 people from Country D break in, secretly guarding against them. Bus. A voice rose inside Tan Shio's heart. Tan Shio knew that Kawako had sensed him through the connection between them. However, he didn't rush to appear and instead transmitted his thoughts through the connection. Contact the people from Country Y and attack the people from Country D. Kawako's expression shifted and she vaguely glanced at the direction of Tan Shio's group. She immediately spoke to the 5 people from Country Y in fluent English. "Friends from Country Y, this 3-star vestige is fraught with dangers and every force is hostile to each other. But we've suffered heavy losses, so I'm afraid we'll be annihilated if any force attacks us. Therefore, we're willing to form an alliance with you as long as you help us take revenge. We'll share some of the good stuff we got in the vestige with you after we deal with the other forces. For example, this energy board in my hand." Having said that, she took out a black energy board the size of a cell phone battery from her pocket and shook it at the 5 people from Country Y. The expressions of the 4 people from Country D fell. If they were facing a single country, they would still have the confidence to fight. However, if they were facing 2 countries at the same time, they knew that even if they won, they would have to pay a heavy price. Not to mention that they had already lost 1 person. Moravidal, the captain of Country D's team, wore a gloomy expression at the moment. He shot a murderous look at Kawako and immediately spoke to the 5 people from Country Y in a deep voice. "JC, we're old friends and we know each other's capabilities. Even if you form an alliance, I'm afraid you'll have to pay a heavy price to get rid of us. It's better for both sides to form an alliance and annihilate these Japanese guys first before we divide the spoils of war. There are a lot of treasures in this 3-star vestige, and it's very difficult for any country to monopolize them all. It's better for both sides to cooperate and become the final winner." The 5 people from Country Y exchanged glances and discussed in a low voice. Finally, they looked at Moravidal and said, "These 3 Japanese guys are indeed nothing to worry about. We accept your suggestion, but we have a request." "What is it?" Moravidal was delighted. "To prove your sincerity, I hope you can act first." JC, the captain of Country Y's team, said in a deep voice, "We'll act immediately as long as you can kill any one of them. Else, we'd rather cooperate with these 3 Japanese guys to deal with you." Moravidal's expression slightly changed. After thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, "If that's the case, then we'll act first." After having said that, as soon as he issued the order, the 4 people flashed toward Kawako's group of 3 lightning fast. Tan Shio, who was hiding behind the light screen, felt helpless upon hearing JC and Moravidal's words. He even cursed JC and the other 4 people from Country Y inwardly for being brainless. If it were him, he would definitely choose Japan instead of Country D. Because, once they joined forces with Country D and eliminated the Japanese people, they would still be left with a strong enemy. It was better to contact the weak to contend with the other powerhouses and finally eliminate the weak Japanese. Captain Zhu Long, you 4 continue to hide here. I must save the Japanese people. Don't ask me for the reason. It won't be too late for you to appear after I've dealt with those people. Having said that, he didn't give Zhu Long any time to speak and immediately flashed to appear in everyone's line of sight. Furthermore, he acted like a thunderbolt as a violent aura erupted from his body. His fists were like meteors as they fiercely bombarded Moravidal's back, who was caught off guard. Puff! Moravidal was a genetically modified human with the genes of an elephant. Not only did he become very strong, but his defense had also become more powerful. Tang Xiu's punch landed on his back, and though he instantly suffered a serious injury, he was still able to retain his life force. The next moment, Tang Xiu appeared between the other 2 ability users from Country D. Just as they attacked Kawako's trio, a dagger appeared in Tang Xiu's hand out of thin air. He easily kicked the lower ribs of one of the ability users from Country D before stabbing the dagger into the lower ribs of the other. His lightning-fast fist also followed up and hit the other's neck. Crack! The neck of the ability user from Country D was forcibly broken, and his body was easily kicked away by Tang Xiu. The 5 ability users from Country Y, who were standing in the distance and watching, had their complexions drastically changed. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that someone would suddenly appear out of nowhere and that the one who helped the 3 people from Japan turned out to be a Chinese brat. Moreover, they were shocked because they didn't expect that Tang Xiu's strength would be so powerful. Behind the holographic screen, Zhu Long was furious because of Tang Xiu's decision. Even Fire Devil and Electro Lady looked angry. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with Tang Xiu's brain. Or did he have a fever? Why didn't he save anyone? Why did he have to save the Japanese? Aquababe's expression was a bit strange. She looked at Tang Xiu's vague figure, but a monstrous wave was raised in her heart. Because Tang Xiu's figure was too fast, and she could only catch an afterimage with her naked eyes. Her mind was racing, and she quickly deduced that if Tang Xiu was her enemy, it would be absolutely easy for Tang Xiu to kill her. How is this possible? The anger on Zhu Long's face suddenly froze, while Fire Devil's and Electro Lady's angry expressions turned into tongue-tied ones. They watched helplessly as Tang Xiu killed one of Country D's experts and severely injured 2 in the blink of an eye. Chapter 782. Zhu Long didn't have a good impression of Tang Xiu ever since he first met Tang Xiu. On one hand, it was because he didn't understand this guy who was forcibly inserted into the team, and on the other hand, Tang Xiu wasn't an ability user. He thought that Tang Xiu was just an ordinary person who would become a burden to them once they encountered danger and fought with the enemy. Therefore, he didn't give Tang Xiu any face along the way. But Tang Xiu's performance at this moment was so strong that it made his heart tremble. How was this a little bit stronger? A little bit faster? It was as if a big bad wolf had appeared in a flock of sheep. It could not be any more ferocious. Suddenly, Zhu Long felt his cheeks burning. It was as though a pair of invisible slaps had slapped him left and then left. With a guilty conscience, he secretly glanced at Fire Devil and Electro Lady at this moment and found that they were also shocked. Only then did he feel slightly relieved. But just as he was about to retract his gaze, he keenly noticed that Aquababe was looking at him with a strange expression. For a moment, Zhu Long wished he could find a hole to burrow into. He really didn't have the face to see anyone. To cover up his embarrassment, Zhu Long said in a strange voice, "Let's go. Let's do it together. No matter how strong Tang Xiu is, we're comrades on the same team." As his voice faded away, his clothes fluttered without any wind and he instantly dashed toward the battlefield. Aquababe followed closely behind him and cast her water attribute special ability. Layers of water waves surged in the air and whizzed forward. Meanwhile, Fire Devil and Electro Lady had also recovered from the shock. Both of them released flames and lightning respectively and sprinted quickly with great momentum. Annihilate! The four of them were very strong. Although they weren't the strongest among the members who participated in the 3-star vestige exploration, they were still among the best. With their attacks, the heavily injured Morvital was easily killed and the other two were also killed in a short time. At this moment, Kawako's eyes were filled with surprise and admiration as she looked at Tan Xiao. Cheng Xueme, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect that the high school student who needed her help would possess such terrifying strength. This time, she was ordered to infiltrate the island nation because her ability was activated and she was heavily injured during a mission. After receiving treatment and careful guidance from Duanmu Lin, the leader of the State Ability Users Bureau, he finally gained the ability to control thick earth. For a secret mission, he hid his identity, changed his appearance, and finally became the right-hand man of a high-level politician in Japan. She and Kawako Yamamoto were not on the same side because the Japanese politician she assisted was at odds with the party supported by the Yamamoto family. If they weren't on the same team, perhaps Kawako wouldn't have saved her life in the previous battle. However, she was very clear about one thing. If she met someone from the kingdom of Huaxia in the ruins and was in danger, even if it meant exposing her identity, she had to help. It was because she knew that if the treasures in the 3-star vestige were to be obtained by the kingdom of Huaxia, it would be very beneficial for them. Tan Xiao didn't even glance at Kawako and Cheng Xueme. Instead, he looked at JC, the captain of Countrywise team, and indifferently said, "Give me the crystal ball." With a solemn expression, JC looked at Tan Xiao and coldly said, "You're very powerful, and I can't even see what ability you have. But do you think we're afraid of you?" "Maybe you won't be afraid if it's just us," said Tan Xiao indifferently. "But if we join forces with the three of them, what do you think your chances of surviving are?" Kawako instantly stepped forward and glared at JC with hostility. "That's right. We're destined to be enemies, so we're willing to join forces with our friends from Huaxia. Even if we all die here, we'll drag you down with us." JC's expression instantly turned extremely unsightly. He looked at the crystal ball protected by them in the middle, and then shifted his eyes to Tan Xiao and Kawako. Eventually, he discussed with his four companions in a low voice and quickly moved away more than 20 meters. Sneering, Tan Xiao came to the front of the crystal ball and found that it was fixed on the 1-meter-high crystal pillar. He immediately reached out to hold it and was about to take it off the pillar. However, his expression changed when he saw that the crystal ball remained motionless even though he had used nearly 80% of his strength. Standing more than 20 meters away, JC sneered and said, "We've just tried, but there's no way to take the crystal ball off the pillar. So what if you're a bit stronger? We'll give it to you, but you won't get anything." Tan Xiao shot him a cold look and immediately injected his spiritual sense into the crystal ball. He found that there was a very small seal array inside. He directly saw through the mysteries of this seal array and smoothly broke through it. Then he moved toward the fingernail-sized golden insect inside. "Let me out and I'll serve you for a light year." Its weak intent entangled with Tan Xiao's spiritual sense and instantly transmitted back to Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao quickly communicated with it using his thoughts. "What species are you? What abilities do you have? Why should I believe you?" "I'm a member of the Star Devourer insect clan. I was sealed in this crystal ball by a powerful exalted immortal. That exalted immortal bullied me because I'm still young and have just obtained my bloodline inheritance, so I haven't mastered any formidable power yet. As long as you let me out, I'll have a way to possess a very powerful ability in a short period of time. Serving you for a light year is the rule of our Star Devourer insect clan to thank our benefactor. I don't lack thugs." Tan Xiao directly transmitted his thoughts. The golden Star Devourer insect was anxious. It had been sealed for countless years, and it didn't even know how long it had been. Now that it had finally met a human who could break the seal and let it escape, if it didn't seize this opportunity, it would be tortured to madness inside. "What do you need? No matter what request you have, I can try my best to satisfy you. Tell me, where are you from? Also, which civilization in the universe does this 3-star relic belong to?" How did they come to Earth? I'm from the Black Cloud star field, the Porto star system. That's the incubation base of our star devourer insect clan and also my hometown. There are many races in the Black Cloud star system, including many advanced civilizations. The fleet that brought me here was the Star Luo Empire's fleet. They were defeated by other civilized nations and became an interstellar vagrant race. After escaping here, the few remaining Star Luo Empire lives hurriedly built this base. They thought they would get a new home, but they didn't expect to be trapped here because they couldn't adapt to Earth's environment. Tan Xiao suddenly understood, but he still realized a problem and hurriedly asked, "How long have you been on Earth?" "A wave." "What's a wave?" The star devourer insect was anxious. It didn't know the unit of time in this place and wanted to explain but didn't know how to explain. It anxiously circled around countless times and finally sent a thought, nearly an eon. Eon? 3 million years? Tan Xiao was referring to the unit of time because some races in the immortal world used eon as a unit of time. However, he never imagined that the Star Luo Empire's battleship would actually come to Earth more than 1,000,000 years ago. At that time, there shouldn't be any humans on Earth, right? "I can save you, but you have to sign a contract with me. Also, I need to know how long you're talking about a light year. By the way, our human unit of time is..." Through Tan Xiao's explanation, the Star Devourer insect finally figured out the unit of time on Earth. The light year it was talking about was actually 2,000 years on Earth. Master-servant contract. Tan Xiao quickly signed the contract with the Star Devourer insect. The seal formation inside, which he thought was extremely crude, was easily broken by him. As cracks appeared on the crystal ball, the Star Devourer insect finally rushed out after the crystal ball exploded. It flew happily in this space for a while before landing on Tan Xiao's outstretched finger. "You'll follow me from now on," Tan Xiao said calmly. More than 20 meters away, JC looked at the Star Devourer insect on Tan Xiao's finger with his mouth agape. Even when the crystal ball exploded, he didn't feel the slightest joy. Instead, a strong sense of crisis rose in his heart when he looked at the Star Devourer insect. Because he realized that the existence in the crystal ball was this Star Devourer insect, and this Star Devourer insect had already been obtained by Tan Xiao. Just as Tan Xiao took the Star Devourer insect into his body and let it live on his left finger, 3 figures rushed in from another passage. "Us people?" Everyone's expression shifted and their eyes instantly locked on them. The 3 us people's complexion drastically changed upon seeing the corpses on the ground. They vigilantly kept a distance from Tan Xiao's group, as well as the people from country Y. The bearded leader indifferently said, "If my guess is correct, the members of D, YDL, and BX countries should all be dead, right?" "Yeah, they're all dead," sneered JC. "Did you kill them?" asked the bearded man. JC glanced at Tan Xiao and sneered. "How could we have the ability to kill them? They killed each other and eventually perished together." Kawako also glanced at Tan Xiao and said, "Yeah, they did perish together." The bearded man didn't believe JC and Kawako's words, but he didn't want to ask any more at the moment. What he needed to do now was to protect himself and the others while facing the 3 forces inside. Tan Xiao didn't want to waste any more time here, so he slowly said, "Everyone, since there's no need for us to fight each other, I think we should go our separate ways. There are many good things in this vestige, and it's impossible for any party to monopolize them. There are a total of 12 entrances here, so each of us can choose one." "No problem," said JC straightforwardly. Kawako naturally wouldn't refute Tan Xiao, so she nodded in agreement. As for the ELS trio, they were already thankful that they weren't besieged by the people from China, Country Y, and Japan, so they naturally had no objection. Chapter 783. The 7th entrance on the left. Just as Tan Xiao was about to choose a portal to enter, Star Devourer Insect's voice sounded in his mind. His expression shifted and he quickly asked, "What's inside the 7th entrance?" "The main console." Star Devourer Insect had been sealed for countless years, but it had a good understanding of the situation in the entire vestige. It figured out the purpose of these humans coming here through the communication between the experts of various countries. Furthermore, it had been following Tan Xiu for 2,000 years, so it naturally wanted to help Tan Xiu get the best things. The main console was the central area of the entire vestige. Controlling the operating system of the main console would allow one to easily mobilize the perpetual power of the entire vestige, be it for defense or attack. Tan Xiu had seen the interstellar battleships of advanced civilizations, so he naturally knew what the main console represented. Without any hesitation, he didn't immediately rush to the 7th portal on the left. Instead, he turned to look at Zhu Long and lightly said, "We should part ways since we're already here. This vestige is huge and there are too many areas to explore inside. You can choose any portal to enter, while I'll enter the other one." Having witnessed Tan Xiu's strength, Zhu Long knew that he would eventually leave the team, so he didn't urge him to stay. He nodded and said, "Be careful and retreat immediately if there's any danger." Tan Xiu nodded but didn't directly choose a portal. He watched Zhu Long's group of 4 choose a portal, and then his eyes fell on the 3 Japanese people. "Long time no see," Tan Xiu calmly said. Cheng Xueme shuddered inwardly and quickly glanced at Kawako and the other middle-aged man. Then she squeezed out a smile and said, "It's indeed been a long time. But you're much more powerful than when we first met." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and looked at Kawako, asking, "Who's this guy?" Kawako pondered for a moment. Suddenly, a sharp dagger appeared in her hand and stabbed the middle-aged man's heart without him noticing. "Why?" The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he desperately clutched his chest and shouted. Kawako sneered and respectfully cupped her fists at Tan Xiu. "He's not one of my men, boss. If it wasn't for the temporary team I formed, I would have had some enmity with the force he belongs to." Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile, "Since our paths are different, it's fine to kill them." The middle-aged man looked incredulously at Kawako and Tan Xiu and exclaimed, "You called him, boss?" Kawako sneered and watched him crash to the ground. Then she asked, "Is Junko also one of your men, boss?" At this moment, Cheng Xueme was stunned by the sudden change in front of her. Never once in her wildest dreams did she expect that Kawako Yamamoto would suddenly attack a member of her team, let alone address Tan Xiu as boss. In a flash, she took a few steps back, fearing that Kawako would suddenly attack her. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he suddenly asked, "Are you carrying out a secret mission, Cheng Xueme?" Cheng Xueme hesitated for a moment before she nodded and said, "Yes. My relationship with Kawako must never be known by outsiders," said Tan Xiu. "You have 2 choices now. First, kill yourself in front of me. I'll take your corpse out of the vestige and hand it over to your younger sister. Second, pledge allegiance to me. Even if you're facing the country, you can only choose my side in the end. You have 2 choices, choose yourself." "Don't tell me you're not one of the country's men?" asked Cheng Xueme angrily. "I'm naturally one of the country's men, but I also belong to myself," said Tan Xiu lightly. "If you want to be my man, then you must put my interests first, followed by the mission given by the country." "What do you want me to do?" asked Cheng Xueme. "I don't need you to do anything. Just remember one thing," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "What you see and hear must rot in your belly and not be reported to your real superiors after you leave the vestige." Cheng Xueme was silent for half a minute before she slowly said, "I promise you." "Then leave since you've promised me," said Tan Xiu. "I can guarantee that not only will Kawako not harm you in the future, but she can also help you in secret if you need anything during your stay in Japan." Cheng Xueme didn't utter a word. The current Tan Xiu made her dread and even a bit fearful. "Kawako will be with me," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "Pick a portal and enter it yourself. Escape immediately if you encounter any danger and then come to the 7th portal on the left to find me. Remember, it's best to call your younger sister when it's convenient for you." Cheng Xueme's expression slightly changed and she hurriedly asked, "Do you know my younger sister's current situation? How is she?" "Without your protection, what do you think her situation will be like?" said Tan Xiu indifferently. "But don't worry. She's already separated from your family and will probably never go back again in this life. As for where she is now, I've already placed her in a safe place that she likes. You can look for me first when you return to the country after your mission is over. Thank you. Cheng Shuemei shot a grateful look at Tan Xiu before she turned around and chose a portal to enter. Kawako waited until Cheng Shuemei's back completely disappeared before she spoke in a low voice. Boss, I think we should kill her directly. Else, it'll be a great threat to both you and me if she divulges our relationship. I know a bit about her character. Tan Xiu shook his head. Even if she can't be used by me, she won't break her promise. Besides, although she's very strong, the most important person in her heart has already become one of us. Her younger sister? Asked Kawako. That's right, her younger sister. Tan Xiu nodded. Her younger sister's life is more important than her own, so you can rest assured. If she returns to Japan after leaving the vestige, help her as long as she doesn't pose too much of a threat to you, no matter what kind of mission she's carrying out. All right. Kawako readily agreed. Tan Xiu didn't say anything else. Since he had chosen the Star Devourer insect, he directly came to the 7th portal on the left and gently pressed the button on the door, causing it to open directly. As Tan Xiu and Kawako entered, they passed through the blue corridor that was like a surging tide and arrived in front of a spacious hall. Whoosh! A hazy light shadow instantly whipped over. The speed of the light shadow was so fast that even Tan Xiu didn't have time to dodge it. He hastily sent Kawako flying with a backhand palm, but the light shadow whipped his chest. A flame exploded on Tan Xiu's chest, sending him flying upside down while spraying blood. Boss, Kawako's complexion changed. She only felt a bit of pain from being sent flying by Tan Xiu, but she didn't suffer any injury. The moment her feet landed on the ground, she found that Tan Xiu was flying toward her. Almost without hesitation, she reached out and hugged Tan Xiu in her arms. Her footsteps flickered as she quickly retreated more than 10 meters away. Cough, cough, Tan Xiu coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood while being held in Kawako's arms. It was just a single blow, but it had already caused his internal organs to feel like they were on fire. The burning sensation was mixed with intense pain. Had it not been for his strong physique, that blow would have likely split him into 2 halves. Inside the hall, there was a lush green vine swaying its body with dozens of vines bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws like the tentacles of an octopus. Its entire body was blooming with a faint blue radiance, making it look particularly beautiful. It was one of those vines that attacked Tan Xiu just now. Be careful. That thing is very dangerous. Tan Xiu raised his hand to wipe off the blood on the corner of his mouth and stuffed a holy healing pill into his mouth. He then quickly circulated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis and said, Kawako was somewhat touched. What Tan Xiu did just now was to save her, something that warmed her heart more than the medicinal pills Tan Xiu gave her. However, she also instantly judged that the seemingly beautiful vines were, in fact, full of danger. Otherwise, her boss, Tan Xiu, would never have been unable to dodge and be directly injured. However, what made her feel relieved was that the vine didn't attack again after that blow. Perhaps its branches weren't that long. What should we do, boss? Asked Kawako cautiously. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and quickly communicated with Star Devourer Insect while recuperating his internal injuries. Through the insect's introduction, he finally figured out the situation of the vine. This vine was known as the luminous vine in high-leveled civilizations. It could grow as long as there was light. After years of accumulated growth, it could even develop spiritual wisdom and was known as an intelligent plant-type life form. This was exactly the same as the plants on Earth that cultivated into monsters. However, the luminous vine would become more powerful as time went by. Despite its exceptionally slow growth speed, it had reached a terrifying limit after growing for more than 1,000,000 years. Even in the civilized world where it grew, there were only a few that were stronger than it. Don't tell me it has no lifespan limit? Tan Xiu frowned and communicated with Star Devourer Insect. Star Devourer Insect replied, the luminous vine has a lifespan limit and it's extremely harsh. According to your Earth's time, it will die if it doesn't get light energy in 45 days. Of course, the longer the lifespan of the luminous vine, the longer it will live. Given its lifespan, it can still live even if it doesn't get light energy for a few years. It's too powerful. Tan Xiu asked. You mean the reason why it can live until now is that the energy in this vestige has been producing light energy for it? Star Devourer Insect replied. Tan Xiu frowned and asked, how can I subdue this luminous vine if I want to control the main console? Or you can kill it. Intimidate. Star Devourer Insect's reply was very simple. Chapter 784. Star Devourer Insect's reply made Tan Xiu at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Did it think that the light vine was a 2-year-old child? Threatening it with a few words was enough to make it yield? Don't talk nonsense. Give me an idea. Star Devourer Insect seriously told Tan Xiu, the light vine is a particularly timid species, and they're most afraid of flames. Ordinary flames may have an effect on ordinary light vines, but powerful flames can burn them to death. Take this light vine in front of you for example. As long as you can get a powerful flame, you can kill it without scaring it. Timid? Flames? A strange look appeared in Tan Xiu's eyes. After cutting off the connection with Star Devourer Insect, he struggled to get up from Kawako's bosom. Along with the surging of his magical power, 2 blazing flames suddenly rose from his hands. What you light vines are most afraid of should be special flames, right? Unfortunately, I have a very high-quality flame. Today will be the day you die. Tan Xiu communicated with the light vine with his thoughts, his mood fluctuating with intense killing intent. In a flash, the light vine, which was emitting a lustrous luster, retracted all its swaying branches and quickly wrapped them around its body. Along with the feeling of fear, its thoughts also arrived. Is this the demonic flame? Damn it, how can you earthlings have this kind of demonic flame? Tang Xiu squinted his eyes. He cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, which belonged to the supreme devil art. Thus, the flames of magical power that he unleashed naturally carried a demonic nature. What surprised him, however, was that this light vine could actually recognize the demonic flame. That's right. The demonic flame I release is something that even those demon kings in the demon realm with monstrous cultivation may not necessarily be able to compare with me. Since you know the power of the demonic flame, you should know that the 2 demonic flames in my hands can burn you to ashes in an instant. Don't kill me. The light vine hurriedly transmitted its thoughts. Tan Xiu coldly snorted and said, you just ambushed me, so let's settle this score. Unless you can bring me great benefits, I don't mind venting my anger and making you wail in pain in the demonic flame. By the way, I forgot to tell you something. I used to be the paragon of the immortal world. Although I don't know if the planetary system you came from knows about the existence of the immortal world, I have a special ability. I can extract your soul. After I burn your body, I will seal your soul in the devil flame and burn it day and night, making you suffer the pain of being burned forever. Immortal world. Paragon? Damn it. Guang Teng's body trembled violently, as if it was afraid, and it curled up even tighter. Just as Tan Xiu was about to threaten it further, he suddenly felt a pain in his finger. The Star Devourer Insect's thoughts quickly transmitted to him, You were once a supreme of the immortal world? That's right. Tan Xiu felt that there was no need to hide it from the Star Devourer Insect, so he answered directly. The Star Devourer Insect's emotions fluctuated abnormally. There was fear and excitement, and it even transmitted a thought with some caution. If you really were a paragon of the immortal world, then I'm willing to serve you forever. As long as you can bring me along when you return to the immortal world in the future, that will be enough. Do you really know about the immortal world? Asked Tan Xiu. That's right. We know about the immortal world, answered the Star Devourer Insect. That's right. We know about the immortal world, answered the Star Devourer Insect. But that passage is extremely dangerous. Only a species with terrifying strength can cross it and reach the higher plane of the immortal world. An immortal from the immortal world once came to our planetary system, and he easily killed the most powerful barefoot black dragon in our planetary system. He easily destroyed a supersized nation. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and agreed to the Star Devourer Insect's words. He then continued to threaten Guang Teng. I once sent an immortal subordinate to your planetary system. He seemed to have killed the strongest barefoot black dragon in your planetary system and even easily destroyed a supersized nation. Unfortunately, my subordinate was too soft-hearted and directly killed him. If it were me, I would have extracted their souls and tortured them day and night. I wouldn't let them go even if it's a reincarnation cycle. Hiss! One of Guang Teng's tentacles suddenly extended towards Tan Xiao. There was a translucent diamond-shaped crystal on the dark green tentacle. Even without touching it, Tan Xiao could feel the enormous energy contained inside. He even had a feeling that if the energy inside the diamond-shaped crystal were to explode, it would absolutely destroy the entire Earth. "What do you mean?" asked Tan Xiao. Guang Teng's emotions carried a strong sense of flattery, but this flattery couldn't conceal its fear. "This is my energy crystal core, my foundation. You can control my life and death by controlling my energy crystal core. I'm willing to submit to you forever. As long as you don't kill me, I'll do anything you want me to." Tang Xiao inquired about this star-devourer insect and got the same answer as what Guang Teng said. As long as one could control its energy crystal core, it could be regarded as having control over its life and death. However, this was very disadvantageous for Guang Teng as it would slow down its growth. Life and death seal. Tan Xiao cast a spell into the energy crystal core and casually threw it to Guang Teng, saying, "I don't need to control your energy crystal core to easily control your life and death. You should be able to feel that I've cast a powerful forbidden technique inside your energy crystal core. As long as you dare to do anything to me, I can kill you with just a thought." After Guang Teng put the energy crystal core back into his body, he sensed the thing inside the energy crystal core. That thing even made him feel fear. Once it exploded, it could indeed kill him directly, and even his soul would be blown into ashes. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and walked to the front of Guang Teng under Kawako's horrified expression. He reached out to touch Guang Teng's body and transmitted a transfiguration art to it. Then, he said, "Cultivate this transfiguration art to transform your body into a human form." An immortal art? Guang Teng was excited. As its tentacles spread out, it quickly absorbed the contents of the transfiguration spell. In the short span of a dozen breaths, a crystalline dark green light appeared on the surface of its body. Within the light, a naked girl appeared. She looked to be only 15 or 16 years old, and her entire body was snow-white, like warm porcelain. "Transform clothes," Tan Xiao directly said. Guang Teng excitedly looked at her own body. Then, she put on a set of clothes that was almost the same as Tang Xiao's, but the color was dark green, which covered her naked body. "Thank you, Master." Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction and said, "You'll follow me from now on. I'll give you some time to learn human knowledge." "Ting Nu knows human knowledge," said Guang Teng quickly. "This base can monitor any corner of this planet. I've lived here for more than 1,000,000 years and know all the evolutionary processes of humans. I even know that you come from a low-level civilization, China." Tan Xiao narrowed his eyes and asked, "Since you know my origin, don't you know what I've done?" Guang Teng shook her head. "I know your origin through language, but I rarely observe the outside world. Sometimes, I don't observe the outside world even once in thousands of years. The last time I observed it was because a human came in, so it piqued my interest." Tan Xiao suddenly understood and nodded. "Do you have a name?" "I originally didn't have a name, but since I'll be your slave in the future, you can call me Ting Nu," said Guang Teng. "Ting Nu?" Tan Xiao nodded and was too lazy to give her a name. "In that case, I'll call you Ting Nu from now on. This is the main control panel, right? I need to completely control this relic. Teach me." Ting Nu turned around and walked to the chair in the center of the hall. She pointed at it and said, "There's a memory card in this chair. You only need to sit on it to get the memory card's transmission. After all the contents are transmitted to your brain, you'll know how to control this relic." "Alright." Tan Xiao was very courageous. He wasn't afraid that Ting Nu would trick him, so he directly sat on the chair. At this time, Kawako looked at Tan Xiao with eyes full of worship and respect. She didn't know how Tang Xiao did it. He was able to make the vine stop its attack and even turn it into a human form. A demon? She could conclude that this girl who called herself Ting Nu was a demon cultivated from vines. Yet, this demon was actually subdued by her boss, Tan Xiu. It was simply beyond her imagination. At this moment, she had never felt so strongly that following Tan Xiu was the right choice. Time fleeted by. In another hall in the ruins, there was a large nursery. In the nursery, there was a large number of precious spiritual herbs. These spiritual herbs all had their own intelligence, but none of them were able to leave the nursery. A hazy brilliance sprinkled down from the top of the nursery, providing them with all the nutrients they needed. After Cheng Xueme stepped into this place, she was keenly aware that the air here was extremely fresh. Even if it was just a light breath, it would make her feel refreshed, and she could feel all the pores on her body relaxing. When her eyes fell on the many fruits in the nursery, the rich fruity fragrance made her salivate. Fortunately, she was able to restrain her desire and quickly observed everything inside. Is this just a place for planting flowers and trees? Cheng Xueme was a bit disappointed. She hesitated for a moment before approaching the nursery. When she stopped half a meter away from the edge of the nursery, she bent down and reached inside. A sharp green leaf instantly wrapped around her wrist. The sharp edge of the leaf cut Cheng Xueme's wrist, causing her blood to spray out. However, when the leaf was stained with Cheng Xueme's blood, it instantly loosened its grip on Cheng Xueme's wrist. Under Cheng Xueme's watchful gaze, it quickly moved several meters away. Chapter 785. Cheng Xueme, whose wrist was cut, instantly became shocked. She never thought that she would encounter such a strange thing. It must be known that it was a plant. However, her shocked emotions had not yet subsided. Several branches and several long leaves instantly wrapped around her body. Under their pull, Cheng Xueme was pulled into the nursery. Apart from a half-meter-tall, jade-green potted plant, which was stained with Cheng Xueme's warm blood and instantly shrunk back, the other branches and leaves pulled her into the nursery and tied her up like a dumpling. What's going on? A strong fear rose in Cheng Xueme's heart. She suddenly thought of the man-eating flower and the plant monster in the TV series. Suddenly, a plant that was blooming with beautiful flowers used its sharp thorny branches to stab into the top of Cheng Xueme's head. There was no blood splashing, nor was there brain fluid flowing. After the sharp thorns entered Cheng Xueme's brain, a green energy instantly formed an airtight net, wrapping her brain tissue. Fragile, human brain. The thought of the plant, with a huge surprise, was injected into Cheng Xueme's sea of consciousness along with the huge energy, and then through the meridian channel, it rushed into her body with irresistible force. Pain. As if her heart and lungs were torn apart, Cheng Xueme felt that she was about to be tortured to madness by this pain. She even realized that if this continued, her body would break. She wanted to use her consciousness to block the huge energy surging in her body, but it was of no use at all. Am I really going to die? Cheng Xueme was unwilling. Although her heart was filled with fear, she was not willing to die. Her mission had not been completed. What was the situation of her most concerned sister? She had not completely figured it out. At this moment, a strong courage burst from the bottom of her heart. At the moment when a huge consciousness descended into her body along the energy net, the two consciousnesses entangled. Originally, when Cheng Xueme's consciousness came into contact with that enormous consciousness, it would have been devoured by the other party. However, perhaps because of her courage, or perhaps because she was the owner of this body, a special energy suddenly escaped from her heart. Although the amount of golden energy was pitifully small, its quality was extremely high. Dragon soul blood spirit? Damn it, how can an earthling have this kind of bloodline? The invading consciousness wailed and was instantly shattered by the golden energy. As the layers of images dispersed, it floated in the space of Cheng Xueme's consciousness like duckweed. In front of Cheng Xueme, the green plant withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the blooming flowers slowly turned into ashes and scattered with the gentle wind. A circle of lightning appeared and densely packed lightning bolts fiercely shot towards Sorod's group of 5. At the same time, The other 4 also launched a fierce attack, displaying various special abilities one after another as they attacked the 5 people with great momentum. Bastards! Sorod's complexion greatly changed. He never expected that Alante's group of 5 would immediately attack them because of a disagreement. Most importantly, when did Alante have such a powerful special ability? Even he couldn't block the hundreds of lightning bolts that formed in an instant. Dodge! Along with his roar, layers of flames instantly formed into a wall of fire, desperately blocking the lightning attacks. But every attack that hit the wall of fire made Sorod's body tremble. After hundreds of lightning bolts hit the wall of fire, more than a dozen of them were completely penetrated. Sorod's body violently swayed and then staggered to the side to dodge. "You guys retreat." A handsome blonde Caucasian youth's complexion drastically changed. A few metal walls formed in front of him and instantly blocked the lightning bolts that were not blocked by the wall of fire. However, in just a few seconds, the other 4 people's special ability attacks had arrived. Although the metal walls looked solid, dozens of lightning bolts still penetrated the metal walls and bombarded the Caucasian youth's chest under the fierce bombardment. "Treasurer! Treasure!" After a few exclamations, the 4 people, including Sorod, instantly dashed to the front of the Caucasian youth and joined forces to block the storm-like attacks. Unfortunately, the youth called Treasurer didn't expect that the enemy's attack would be so powerful. His whole body was scorched by the lightning bolts, and there was a fist-sized hole in his chest. Although he was still alive, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to survive. An excited look flashed in Alante's eyes. This was the second time he used the ability booster, but he didn't expect that the effect would be so good. He originally thought that it would be a great achievement to cause some injuries to the 5 people from the M country, but he didn't expect that he would directly kill a M country ability user. "Sorod, you brought this upon yourselves." "I have an ability booster, so the power of each of my attacks is absolutely beyond your imagination. Next time, as long as I unleash an even more powerful attack, even you might be killed by it." Sorod's complexion instantly turned extremely unsightly. His eyes stared at the round object in Alante's hand as he took a deep breath and said, "We'll remember this enmity. Let's divide these energy crystals equally. If you agree, we'll immediately divide them equally. If you don't, then we'll kill you. Even if you have a treasure, I'm still confident that I can kill all of you." Alante deliberately hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, "I'll agree to your request so that the people from other countries won't take advantage of me." As a matter of fact, his special ability booster could only be used once at a time. After using it, he needed to store energy for a long time. For example, his special ability was to control electricity, so it took him several months to store a large amount of electricity in the special ability booster. When he used it, he could release hundreds of lightning attacks at once. In another place, in the hall where the main control console was located, Tan Xiao clearly saw what happened to Cheng Xueme and the M and F country members through the virtual image. Originally, he wanted to rescue Cheng Xueme when she encountered an accident. But he never thought that Cheng Xueme would be in the most dangerous situation by the time he found out about it. Even if he had wings, he wouldn't be able to rush there in time. What made him feel relieved was that Cheng Xueme didn't seem to be in any life-threatening danger. Instead, she seemed to have obtained a huge opportunity. "Boss, these M people are really annoying." Kawako, who stood beside Tan Xiao, spoke to Sorod with a disgusted look. She knew Sorod. She had seen Sorod torture and kill a few homeless people who had somehow offended him. Tan Xiao also didn't have a favorable impression of the M people. Upon hearing Kawako's words, he thoughtfully said, "If we kill all the M people, we can't leave the F country's team alive. Now that the power system of the entire vestige is under my control, killing them will be as easy as pinching an ant." He had obtained the inherited memories, so it was easy for him to control the offensive weapons in the vestige. He could even clearly see the scene in the entire vestige through the main control console. "The fewer enemies we have, the more harvest we'll get, boss." Kawako was pleasantly surprised. Chapter 786. Tan Xiao adopted Kawako's suggestion. His hands turned into afterimages as his fingers constantly tapped on the virtual keyboard. Just as the M and F teams reached an agreement and were about to divide the energy crystals, all the lights in the hall where the members of both teams were located suddenly went out. "What's going on?" Sorid and Alanti shouted at the same time. At the same time, the members of both teams retreated in an instant, vigilantly watching the surroundings. They didn't know whether it was the other party's doing or not, but it was still necessary to take precautions. Fire, burn. Both teams had members with fire attribute abilities. As flames rose from the hands of the fire ability users of both sides, light finally appeared in the pitch-black hall. However, just as they were scrutinizing each other, the closed wall suddenly cracked open, and a faint light emerged from the crack. It was a pair of red eyes with colorful streamers. The 8 cracks grew bigger and bigger as 8 robots were fully activated and stepped out from inside. There was a robot dog under each of their feet. Buzz, a swarm of robot bees followed closely behind. In an instant, they surpassed the robots and robot dogs and rushed toward the 9 people in the hall. These robot bees were the size of a fist, and there were hundreds of them. Each of them had very sharp claws, and there were even spikes on their heads that were more than 10 centimeters long. "Watch out! Dodge quickly!" Sorid and Alanti shouted at the same time. They unleashed their abilities in an attempt to eliminate these robot bees first. Unfortunately, flames didn't have much effect on these robot bees. Even lightning didn't have much effect on them. The only thing that comforted the M ability users was that there was a water ability user in their team. With the cooperation of the electric ability user, they destroyed many robot bees. Puff, 16 laser beams shot out, and the 8 robot dogs unfurled their strange wings from their backs. The moment they flew up, they sprayed out a wave of flames. The ability users dodged in time, but it was also extremely dangerous. Just as they dodged the first round of attacks from the robots, the robot dogs, and the robot bees, a large net surging with electric currents shot from 4 directions and almost instantly enveloped them. Then, beams of laser beams shot through the bodies of the ability users from both countries and harvested their lives. The flames spewed out by the robot dog burned their bodies to ashes. Kawako's eyes gleamed with excitement as she watched the elite elementalists from Country M and Country F turn into ashes on the virtual screen. She fiercely clenched her fists and shouted excitedly, "Those damned bastards have been an eyesore for a long time. Now that they're dead, you can say that you've eliminated the evil for the people, boss." "Get rid of evil for the people?" Tan Shio glanced at her with a strange expression and smilingly said, "Are they very bad?" Kawako heavily nodded and said, "That's right. For example, the captain of the M Nation's team, Sorid. That bastard relied on his identity as an ability user, as well as his powerful strength and status, to kill people many times. Most importantly, he even killed the tramps who saw him using his superpower." Tan Shio didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't forget who you are. When did you become so concerned about the homeless?" Kawako blushed and said with a bit of embarrassment, "I actually don't care about those tramps at all. It's mainly because I led a team to snatch an attribute stone from Sorid's hand, but I was seriously injured by him and lost more than 20 of my team members. There's a feud between us." Tan Shio suddenly understood and nodded. "Killing him can be considered as avenging your team members." Kawako waved her hand and said, "Only 2 of them are my men, the rest are from the Yamamoto family. Their life and death have nothing to do with me." "How's your development in the Yamamoto family now?" asked Tan Shio. "With your help, boss, it's naturally very smooth." Kawako smilingly said, "If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't dare to develop with great fanfare, the entire Yamamoto family would be under my control now. However, even though I'm acting in the dark, 1/3 of the Yamamoto family's armed forces are under my control now. As for the North Star One Blade School's armed forces, it's also under my control." Tan Shio gave a thumbs up and praised, "Well done. Boss, if you can send me a few top experts, I can become the real patriarch and leader of the Yamamoto family and the North Star One Blade School in a short time," said Kawako. "There's a saying in your country that you must first capture the ringleader to capture the thieves. Nothing will go wrong as long as I control all the top brass. Tan Xiu thought for a while and nodded. I'll send 2 experts to assist you after we leave this place. With their help, you'll definitely be able to control these 2 forces quickly. However, what are you going to do next after you control these 2 forces? A cold light flashed in Kawako's eyes as she said in a heavy tone, the Sakura Society must be eliminated. Tan Xiu was not clear about the Sakura Society's situation in Japan, but he found out that the Sakura Society had always been the enemy of the Yamamoto family. Although the 2 sides appeared calm on the surface, there were constant frictions in the background and a fierce conflict happened some time ago. It was in that conflict that Kawako led the experts to kill a large number of the Sakura Society's experts. Hence, she was rewarded by the Yamamoto family and became the leader of the younger generation of the Yamamoto family. Go ahead and do it. I'll need you to do a lot of things in the future. The stronger the power you control, the easier it will be for you to handle things in the future. Tell me when you need money and manpower. Even if I have to rush there myself, I'll make sure that you can smoothly deal with those enemies. Kawako directly knelt on one knee and excitedly said, "Thank you, boss. I'll definitely do my best to control more power and do my best for you. Even if you want to be the Lord of Japan in the future, I'll help you do it." Tan Xiu gently patted Kawako's shoulder and smilingly said, "Get up. I'm not interested in being the Lord of Japan, nor do I have any ambitions. But you, on the other hand, may become the Lord of Japan someday in the future. Work hard and I'm very optimistic about you." Shortly after, Tan Xiu listened to the virtual video and watched the 4 Chinese ability users carefully exploring the armory. There were countless weapons of all kinds inside. After a series of tests, the 4 were full of excitement as they packed the small but powerful weapons into their military bags. If it weren't for their limited physical strength, they would have emptied the entire armory. "Boss, since you've already taken control of this vestige, are you still willing to let them take away all the weapons in the armory?" asked Kawako in a puzzled tone upon seeing that Tan Xiu didn't show any expression. "It's impossible for them to take all the weapons out," said Tan Xiu calmly. "I'll give them a big gift when they're about to leave." A big gift? Kawako was looking forward to it. She really wanted to see what Tan Xiu would do to these Chinese ability users. Half an hour later, a smile immediately appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he watched Zhu Long's group of 4 leave the armory to continue exploring other places. His hands kept typing on the virtual keyboard as he completed a series of program settings. Afterward, he indifferently smiled and said, "I'm going to take a stroll in other places. You stay here and monitor them. Remember, the program I've set won't put their lives in danger, but it's inevitable that they will be careless in battle. So press this button immediately once you find them in danger." Kawako looked at the place Tan Xiu pointed at and nodded. "Don't worry, boss. I'll monitor them carefully." The entire 3-star vestige was very large, but Tan Xiu was very familiar with it since he had received the inherited memories. After leaving the main control hall alone, he immediately rushed to other places: the armory, the energy depot, the living area, the sports area. Finally, Tan Xiu came to the plantation area where Cheng Xueme was trapped. Looking at the dark green light cocoon in front of him, Tan Xiu detected that Cheng Xueme's life signs were quite good and was growing stronger with every passing moment. Immediately after, his eyes shifted to the tens of thousands of plants in the nursery. Although he had learned from the inherited memories that all the plants in this plantation area had been stored for more than 1,000,000 years and each of them possessed magical powers, he was still very excited. It must be noted that, if these plants learned the transfiguration art and turned into humans, the power they would possess would be absolutely terrifying. They would probably become a huge force even in the immortal world. However, before teaching them the shape-shifting technique, he had to subdue all of these highly intelligent plants to prevent unnecessary trouble after he left this place. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and spoke in the Black Cloud Star Field's common language in a deep voice. "I know you can hear me and understand what I'm saying. I've become the master of this vestige and obtained the inheritance left by the last clansman of the Star Luo Empire, so I'll give you 2 choices. First, be killed by me here. Second, accept my control and become my subordinates." "Buzz, In an instant, the tens of thousands of intelligent plants in the nursery let out a series of buzzing sounds. They quickly communicated with each other in a unique way. After a long while, a plant that was several meters tall and completely white transmitted a thought to Tan Xiu. Why should we believe you? If it weren't for the fact that we can't leave this special space, any one of us would be able to kill you. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth, and he said, "You're right. The area you live in has indeed been set up with a special formation by the people of the Star Luo Empire. You can only move in this area, but you can't appear anywhere else in the vestige of steel. If you don't have help, you might even be trapped here forever. Therefore, you can't kill me now, but I have many ways to kill you. For example, using fire." Chapter 787. As the devil flame appeared in Tan Xiu's hands, the intense heat instantly caused the entire cultivation area to surge with layers of heat waves. Even the moment the devil flame appeared in Tan Xiu's hands, the tens of thousands of intelligent plants in the nursery seemed to have seen a terrifying nemesis and hurriedly avoided it. Interesting. Even though they could not be transmitted to Tan Xiu could still clearly sense the intense fear. In order to completely intimidate them, Tan Xiu sneered and said again, "I can control the entire weapon system in the ruins. If I want to kill all of you, I only need to use laser cannons and corrosive venom to easily do so. Also, if I don't think you're worth my resources, I won't use the weapon system. I only need to shut down the photosynthesizer in the plant area, destroy the nutrient generator, and completely cut off your nutrient absorption channel so that you'll constantly consume your own energy. I believe that in a long time, you'll gradually wither and lose the possibility of survival." In an instant, as soon as Tan Xiu's voice fell, countless emotional fluctuations full of fear came, accompanied by horrified screams. "Surrender, I'm willing to surrender. Spare me, I'm willing to recognize you as my master. Don't kill us. Choose the second option." Tan Xiu nodded in satisfaction. What he wanted to do was to threaten and entice them. Now that he had threatened and intimidated them, the next step was to use a gentle attitude to give them some benefits. "I can tell you clearly that choosing to surrender to me is absolutely beneficial for you, because I can teach you immortal techniques that will not only allow you to transform, but also allow you to have unparalleled magical powers in the future." Immortal techniques? Transform? In an instant, tens of thousands of intelligent plants fell silent. They used special means to observe Tan Xiu. Before they developed intelligence, they did not know what immortal techniques were. Even though it had not been long since they developed high-level intelligence, they did not understand what immortal techniques meant to them. However, since tens of thousands of years ago, a light vine suddenly came to them and communicated with them, they learned about immortal techniques. From their point of view, the light vine was extremely terrifying. The amount of energy it could store was countless times greater than theirs. However, an immortal technique that even the light vine yearned to obtain was definitely something very, very good. A surging aura burst out from Tan Xiu's body and he shouted, "Release your energy cores. I need to cast a forbidden technique on them. Once I cast it on you, your lives will be under my control. I can obliterate anyone who dares to betray me with just a thought." Xiu, Xiu, Xiu. Energy cores floated out of the intelligent plants, causing the space around them to tremble. Tan Xiu's spiritual consciousness swept out and was immediately dumbfounded. According to his calculations, there were a total of 35,680 energy crystals flying toward him. In fact, he felt a little apprehensive at this moment. If these intelligent plants were to use their energy crystal cores to attack him, he would probably be killed in an instant. After all, these were all million-year-old monsters. It was a forbidden technique. Tan Xiu no longer hesitated and frantically began to cast the forbidden technique on the energy cores. But 35,680 energy cores were definitely a huge project for him. In an empty hull in the vestige, the 4 Chinese ability users could be said to have returned from a rewarding journey. They were in a relaxed mood and each of them carried a military bag full of weapons. Even a variety of weapons were hung on their bodies. Zhu Long, Fire Devil and Electrolady's faces bloomed with smiles, and even Aquababe, who rarely laughed, had a smile on her face. I wonder how Tanshio is doing. He encountered a lot of dangers when he just entered the vestige, but there were very few dangers inside. He should be fine, right? Zhu Long looked around after entering the hall and spoke with a smile. Zhu Long, boss, people of different paths can't make plans together. Fire Devil grinned and said, that surname Tang was just a partner with us before, but we're actually not on the same path as him. As for whether he's alive or dead, it has nothing to do with us. You don't need to worry about it. What Fire Devil said makes sense, but I still hope he can survive, said Electrolady with a smile. At the very least, he's very handsome and the type I, Electrolady, like. It would be a waste if he were to die inside. The smile on Aquababe's face receded and she coldly glanced at Fire Devil and Electrolady, saying, don't forget that we wouldn't have had such a big harvest if it weren't for Tanshio. In fact, we might have even died in the previous danger. Hey Aquababe, don't boost others' momentum while diminishing your own. Fire Devil sneered. Who said we couldn't have come inside safely without him? Could you have easily destroyed the robots in the outermost passage without Tanshio? Aquababe questioned. Could you have smoothly passed through the illusion array in the statue hall without Tanshio? Could you have opened the door in the statue hall without Tanshio? Can you be sure we wouldn't have fought with the ability users of other countries without Tanshio? Can you be sure we wouldn't have fought with the ability users of other countries? Fire Devil was rendered speechless by Aquababe's sharp question. His face turned a bit unsightly as he directly turned his face to the side and no longer spoke. Zhu Long furrowed his brows. Although his opinion of Tanshio had greatly changed, he was still somewhat dissatisfied with Tanshio's departure from the team. However, what Aquababe said was very reasonable and he couldn't refute it, so he said, cut it out. Tanshio is, after all, a Chinese. Whether he will hand over the benefits to the country or not, at least he won't let those foreigners benefit. As long as we're still in this vestige, we can only be comrades, not enemies. But no one said he's an enemy. Fire Devil couldn't help but mutter. However, just as he finished speaking, a laser instantly shot out from the corner of the hall. In an instant, the fire demon was caught off guard and shot through his arm. What's going on? The complexion of Zhu Long and the others greatly changed. They instantly threw the military bags in their hands to the side and even quickly removed the heavy weapons on their bodies while being vigilant. Fire Devil's arm was pierced, but it didn't hurt his bones. Nevertheless, the badly mangled wound was still very serious. As he used his fire attribute special ability, he quickly used a fireball to fuse into the wound. Flesh began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the bleeding stopped. 4 laser beams shot from the 4 corners of the hall, targeting the vigilant Zhu Long's group of 4. However, the laser beams were not aimed at their vital points. Zhu Long's complexion changed, and he instantly pushed Fire Devil to the side and dashed to the side. Their speed was very fast and they barely dodged the incoming laser beams. Disbelief flashed in Electrolady's eyes as she loudly said, Boss Zhu Long, we didn't encounter any laser attacks when we passed here before. What the hell is going on here? Zhu Long's eyes wandered back and forth in the 4 corners of the hall as he cautiously said, I don't know either. But if my guess is correct, we should have accidentally triggered some traps here. Everyone be careful. If there are any more laser beams coming out, take these high-tech weapons and leave immediately. Puff, puff, puff. In just a few seconds, more laser beams shot out from everywhere. This time, there were 8 of them. Despite being very strong, the 4 of them were still nearly hit by the laser beams. Damn it. Let's get out of here. Zhu Long was keenly aware that the number of laser beams was multiplying. If they stayed here for too long, it would be very difficult for them to leave alive. His shadow flickered as he grabbed the 2 military bags on the ground and sprinted toward the end of the hall lightning fast. The other 3 also picked up the military bags and heavy weapons they threw and sprinted forward. Unfortunately, their wishful thinking was smashed by the next wave of laser attacks. 16 laser beams formed a crisscrossed route and came toward them head-on. Throw away those heavy weapons. Zhu Long roared. But before he could avoid the 16 crisscrossed laser beams, he could clearly see a laser net moving quickly behind them. His eyes were extremely sharp and he instantly judged that the gap between the laser net could only pass through one person at most. Full of unwillingness, he angrily threw away the 2 military bags he was carrying. At the back, Fire Devil, Electro Lady, and Aquababe also noticed the situation ahead. Just like Zhu Long, they threw away all the military bags and heavy weapons and quickly sprinted after them. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In less than 10 seconds, the 4 of them had passed through the hall. However, the weapons they had brought from the armory were all discarded in the hall. Even the cutting of the laser beams had destroyed those weapons. What made them most distressed was that many of the small weapons they carried were also cut and destroyed by the laser beams that brushed past them. The 4 of them stood side by side at the entrance of the passageway outside the hall and looked at the lasers that were no longer shooting everywhere. The ill-tempered Fire Devil angrily cursed, "What the hell?" Aquababe turned to look at Zhu Long and asked, "What should we do next? Do we go back to the armory to get some weapons? Or do we just leave?" Zhu Long was silent for a moment. Then he shook his head and said, "We didn't encounter any danger here when we went in, but we did when we came out. This shows that we were lucky when we went in, but bad luck when we came out. Now, since we still have some weapons on us, let's leave it at that. I suggest that we look elsewhere." "What if there's danger elsewhere?" asked Aquababe. "We'll evacuate immediately if there's danger elsewhere," said Zhu Long in a deep voice. Chapter 788. Inside the main control room, Kawako Yamamoto was quietly standing in front of the main control panel, watching the distressed appearances of Zhu Long and the others through the virtual images. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile. She was already extremely beautiful to begin with, and the smile on her face made her look even more charming. Unfortunately, there was no man around her, only Ting Nu, an intelligent creature who didn't know how to flirt. However, when her eyes inadvertently swept over a virtual image next to her, her expression suddenly changed and a surprised look appeared in her eyes. Someone from Japan? Kawako didn't expect that there would be an ability user from Japan in the vestige. He crawled up from the ground covered in scars. He should have been killed by the ability user from Country M, but she didn't expect that he didn't die completely. However, judging from his serious injuries, he would probably lose his life if he were to encounter any danger again. At the botanical area, Tan Xiao was sweating profusely as he cast the forbidden technique. 35,680 energy nuclei. Even though he had been working non-stop, it still took him a long time to complete the process. Even his complexion was faintly pale due to the excessive consumption of his mental force. 3 days flashed by like a white horse. Finally, when Tan Xiao exhausted his mental force for the 6th time, he cast the forbidden technique on all 35,680 energy nuclei. In other words, even if these intelligent plants were to be released from the nursery, they wouldn't pose any danger to him. However, the forbidden technique wasn't over yet. He still needed to teach them the transfiguration art. He didn't want to have a large number of plants around him. If outsiders were to see them, they would be scared witless. Huff! After Tan Xiao taught the transfiguration art to 35,680 plants, he finally heaved a sigh of relief and quietly sat cross-legged. He didn't immediately restore his consumed mental force but observed them instead. Time ticked by. Finally, a swaying blade of grass suddenly burst out with an intense green light. Shortly after, a 7 or 8-year-old child appeared in Tan Xiao's sight. Amazing! The child blinked his eyes, then looked at Tan Xiao from afar, cupped his fists and bowed. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and beckoned to him. At this moment, he directly broke the array that enveloped the nursery's surroundings. "Master!" The child's voice was crisp and clear, but he was completely naked, not turning into clothes. It was only under Tan Xiao's suggestion that he conjured the strangely shaped clothes. Tan Xiao had no choice but to take out his phone, find some photos of children's clothes, and signal for him to change. Immediately after, plants continued to transform into human forms. After another half a day had passed, not a single plant remained in the nursery. There were 35,680 people of all ages and genders, and all of them were looking at Tan Xiu respectfully. Tan Xiu said with satisfaction, "You've just transformed into human forms, so there are some rules you don't know yet. How about this? You guys can stay in this base for the time being. I will send a group of humans over to impart to you the knowledge and common sense of Earth. If you have mastered the knowledge and common sense, I'll take you out to live outside." Understood. The sonorous voice made Tan Xiu secretly satisfied. In fact, Tang Xiu's appearance in front of them was a risky move. After all, each of these guys was an old monster who had lived for millions of years. Even if they didn't have systematic cultivation, each of them possessed extremely terrifying strength. He was even secretly worried that they would immediately cause a heavenly tribulation to descend once they appeared outside. No, I must take measures in advance to refine the tribulation evasion talisman. Perhaps only the tribulation evasion talisman can hide from the heavenly Tao and let them live well on earth. However, they have lived for a long time and the energy they possess is too powerful. If even the tribulation evasion talisman can't conceal their aura, I'm afraid they can only live here for a short time. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and immediately imparted a crude cultivation technique from the immortal world to them. Then, he said, "You guys will cultivate here in peace. It won't be long before I take you out of this place to wander in the legendary immortal world. If any of you dare to leave without my order, don't blame me for being ruthless and destroying your soul." Understood. All the sentient plants in human form hurriedly complied. When Tan Xiu returned to the main control room, he saw Kawako with her brows furrowed while holding her chin. He couldn't help but ask, "What's the problem? You look like you're in a dilemma." Kawako's spirit was shaken. She pointed to the virtual image and said, "I found a fish that escaped the net, boss. It's an ability user from YD. He's badly injured, but his life doesn't seem to be in danger. He's now recovering, and it won't take long for him to fully recover." Surprised, Tan Xiu immediately nodded and said, "That's right. It's indeed a fish that escaped the net. It seems that the M&F people are also unreliable. Forget it. Let him live since he's not dead. After all, many countries have joined forces to enter the vestige this time. If the other countries' people are all dead and only our two countries are left, we may have some troubles when the time comes." Kawako stared blankly for a moment before she nodded thoughtfully and said, "You're right. Let alone the other countries, I'm afraid that the M country won't let this go given how overbearing they are. That's right, what should we do if the other countries send more people here?" "You don't know?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "This vestige only opens twice every decade." "That's right, what's the date today?" "May 5th, answered Kawako. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and nodded. "Since it's May 5th, there are still 2 days left. We must leave this vestige within 2 days. Let's do it this way. You'll leave after a while. Give some energy crystals to the other countries if they want to snatch them." "You mean, I'll leave with your people?" asked Kawako. "That's right." Tan Xiu nodded. "Not only the other 4 people from Huaxia, but also that YD fella. With people from 3 countries coming out alive, I'm sure the other countries will guess that something is wrong with the situation inside. They won't blame it all on our 2 countries. You can go back to Japan directly after you leave. I'll send someone to Japan to look for you after I leave." "Are you not going out for the time being, boss?" asked Kawako quickly. "Didn't you say it's only 2 days?" Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and smilingly said, "Do I need a submarine to pick me up if I want to go out? I've already taken control of the entire vestige, and I can even write the program myself. I can control the ship to leave the vestige at any time as long as I want to." "I understand." Kawako suddenly pointed to the flora area where Cheng Xueme was wrapped in a dark green light cocoon and asked, "What about her?" "I'm staying here for the time being to wait for her to leave with me," said Tan Xiu. "I've just checked her condition before I came back from the flora area. She's not in danger, but it won't take long for her to wake up. Don't worry. I'll take care of her properly. As for the island nation, you just need to make up an excuse." "I understand." Kawako nodded and turned around to leave. In the passageway on the periphery of the vestige, the 4 Huaxia ability users were covered with scars, yet they brought out some weapons as well as the previously decomposed robot parts. They didn't rush to leave and just waited quietly. It was because they must take the M country's submarine if they wanted to leave. Zhulong, boss, do you think Tan Xiu can come out or not? We've been waiting here for almost 2 days, asked Fire Devil slowly. You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Zhulong shook his head. The vestige is too strange and dangerous. A little carelessness will cost you your life. We've been inside for 5 days, but no ability users from any country have come out except for the 4 of us. This shows that many ability users from many countries have fallen inside. I believe he'll definitely come out, said Aquababe all of a sudden. Why are you so sure? Asked Zhulong in surprise. Intuition, answered Aquababe. Electrolady looked at Aquababe with a strange expression and immediately sneered. Hey, don't tell me you've really taken a fancy to Tan Xiu? Aquababe directly turned her face to the side with an expression that seemed to say, I'm too lazy to talk to you. Suddenly, the 4 people sitting on the ground jumped up and vigilantly watched Kawako coming out from inside. A Japanese? Zhulong's group of 4 frowned. They didn't expect that the first person to come out alive turned out to be the Japanese they hated the most. Kawako indifferently glanced at Zhulong's group of 4 and lightly said, You guys are very lucky to have lost so few people. It looks like your harvest is pretty good. Do you want to share some with me? Zhulong sneered. Aren't you afraid that we'll join forces to kill you and snatch the things you brought out? I'd be a bit worried if it were someone from other countries. Kawako shook her head. But you Chinese won't. It's not your style. Zhulong's eyes turned cold. Just as he was about to attack Kawako, a figure staggered and rushed out. The Japanese man was covered in scars, holding a dagger in his hand and looking at everyone with a murderous aura. You're lucky. Zhulong sneered and gestured to the 4 people. They then picked up the things they brought out and directly headed outside without waiting for Tan Xiu. As long as the members of each country returned to the interface, the submarine would immediately send them out. This was the agreement between countries. In the depths of the vestige, in front of the main console, Tan Xiu watched the 3 parties heading outside at the same time. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He had already thought of a countermeasure to immediately seal off the entire vestige after all of them had left. Then he would wait for Cheng Xueme to wake up before quietly leaving with Cheng Xueme. As for the spoils of war, he had obtained too many. He could casually take some before leaving and hand it over to Duan Mulin, which would probably be a great contribution. Chapter 789. Haiben Island. The garrison commanders of the 10 countries stood in a row on the shore, all of them looking at the surface of the sea with expectant expressions. There were only 7 days left to explore the ruins, and there were only 2 days left before the deadline. According to the previous experience, it was about time for all the experts to come out. As the commander of Huaxia, Gao Hongxing was extremely nervous. He clearly understood the deeper meaning behind this exploration of the ruins. As long as he could obtain a small amount of technology from the ruins of an advanced civilization, he would be able to promote the progress of the entire country. A great man once said, "Political power comes from the barrel of a gun." The armed forces of the country represented the right to speak in the current era. Although China's development was rapid, it definitely could not become the #1 country. Therefore, if the Huaxia team members were able to reap a great harvest in this expedition, the entire country's military strength would advance by leaps and bounds and have a qualitative leap. "You're back." The F country's commander's expression changed as he shouted excitedly. In an instant, everyone's eyes were fixed on the submarine that was slowly rising from the bottom of the water. As the door of the submarine opened, the first person to appear in front of everyone was the heavily injured member of YD. At this moment, he was carrying a black leather bag. After he quickly reached the shore, dozens of YD soldiers quickly surrounded him. Second place. It was Kawako Yamamoto who was carrying a black suitcase. Immediately, the people from the Japanese military looked excited and quickly protected her. After that, when Zhu Long and the other three came out with a lot of things, Gao Hongxing waved his arm excitedly. Immediately, dozens of Huaxia soldiers quickly surrounded the four of them and protected them. "Where's Tan Xiu?" Although Gao Hongxing's heart was filled with excitement, he didn't forget to ask. Zhu Long silently shook his head and said, "We separated inside and never saw each other again. I'm afraid the odds are against us." Gao Hongxing silently nodded and shouted in a deep voice, "Go back." However, as the members of the three countries returned, the commanders of the other countries became anxious. They were waiting anxiously, but they were informed by the personnel in the submarine that no one from the other countries had returned. Underwater ruins. Although Tan Xiu had already taken control of the entire base, he did not remain idle. He constantly appeared in various places and stuffed large amounts of things that could be taken away into his spatial ring. In just 2 short days, the few spatial rings he had were stuffed to the brim. Teng Nu had been following Tan Xiu all this time. After spending 2 days together, her admiration for Tan Xiu had reached a point where it was hard to increase. Tan Xiu's various magical methods, as well as the immortal techniques that he would occasionally teach her when he was in the mood, made her excited to the point where her blood surged. "Master, can you stay a little longer?" After returning to the control room at the center of the base, Teng Nu asked with hope. Tan Xiu smiled and looked at the light cocoon that enveloped Cheng Xueme in the virtual image. Now there was only a thin layer left. He shook his head and smiled. "I still have a lot of time to deal with outside, so I can't stay here for too long. Furthermore, you'll need a lot of time to digest what I've taught you. So, you should just stay here and cultivate peacefully. I believe it won't take long for me to come back, and at that time, I'll take you out." Ting Nu didn't care about where she was. What she cared about was becoming stronger. Therefore, when she heard Tan Xiu's words, she immediately nodded and said, "Then I'll wait for you to come back here." "Go to the botanical area," Tan Xiu said. "Bring Cheng Xueme here." "All right." Teng Nu replied and her figure instantly disappeared. Tan Xiu bitterly smiled inwardly. Teng Nu's speed was too fast, to the point that he couldn't even see her clearly. Moreover, Teng Nu wasn't the only one who was fast. Even the 35,680 intelligent plants in human form were extremely fast. Even the weakest one was more than 10 times faster than him. Fortunately, I've cast a forbidden technique on them. Otherwise, they could easily cause serious injuries or even death to me with just a flick of their fingers. Tan Xiu muttered inwardly and then began to input instructions on the virtual keyboard. He needed to close all the entrances to the ruins. He even left a hidden exit that would be closed in 2 days. Once it was closed, no one except him would be able to enter. Whoosh, Ting Nu grabbed the light cocoon and reappeared in front of Tan Xiu. At this moment, Cheng Xueme was still unconscious inside the light cocoon and didn't know anything about the situation outside. 1 day later, when the light cocoon completely disappeared, Cheng Xueme finally woke up from her coma. The moment she opened her eyes, Teng Nu's hands were already pressed on her shoulders. Tan Xiu looked at Cheng Xueme lying on the ground and faintly asked, "How do you feel now?" Cheng Xueme blinked her eyes and a huge aura burst out from her body. She felt that her body was full of explosive power. She even had a feeling that she could flatten a mountain in front of her with just a punch. Cheng Xueme wanted to struggle to sit up, but even though her body was full of power, she was still firmly pressed by Ting Nu and couldn't get up. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Forget it. You don't need to explain. Although I don't know what happened to you, it seems to be a good thing. At the very least, you've become stronger, and it's not just a little bit stronger. She's Ting Nu, a light vine in human form. I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to control your own power when you just woke up, so I asked her to hold you down. Listen well, when she releases you, don't suddenly get up and don't use too much power. Just slowly adapt to it. Got it?" Although Cheng Xueme didn't know why her body would have such a change, she had obtained the consciousness of that wisdom plant, so she knew a lot of things. Bim. Just as Ting Nu released her shoulders, she used her arms to support herself from the ground, wanting to sit up. Her whole body was still in a half-sitting position when her body suddenly crashed into the ceiling. In an instant, she hit the steel roof that was tens of meters high. Ouch! As she hit the steel roof, a shallow pit was formed, and the pain made her scream. When her body lightly fell to the ground, she didn't feel any pain at all. Cheng Xueme was dumbfounded. She felt as if she was about to break away from gravity. Her whole body was full of power, but she felt light as a feather. Apart from the pain in her head, the rest of her body couldn't be better. Especially her spirit, which simply felt like it had been completely sublimated. Tan Xiao shook his head and said with a smile, "I told you not to use too much strength. You have a lot of power now, but you have no way to fully control it. Only by slowly adapting to it can you gradually control it. This can be considered as the sequela of the sudden increase in strength." Cheng Xueme was somewhat at a loss whether to laugh or cry. She didn't expect that such a situation would happen to her. She carefully and slowly stood up and gently moved her body. The bones in her whole body made cracking sounds, and she was keenly aware that her height had increased a lot, at least by 5 centimeters. After half a day of adaptation, Cheng Xueme was finally able to control some of her power, but it was very little. Just that little bit of improvement made her bump dozens of times, and many parts of her body were in pain. "It seems that I need to take you somewhere else to properly train." Tan Xiao took out a set of clothes from his interspatial ring. Although it was men's clothing, Cheng Xueme's height had increased to about 1.73 meters, so it wasn't too big to wear it. "You conjured it?" Cheng Xueme was dumbfounded. Her eyesight had rapidly improved, but she still couldn't see Tan Xiao's movements clearly. It was like magic. Tan Xiao smiled indifferently and said, "The me you knew before isn't the real me. While I help you control your power, I'll tell you some things." After saying that, he said a few more words to Ting Nu and then walked outside. Bumps and bumps were inevitable due to Han Qingwu's condition along the way. Finally, he came to the exit of the relic he left behind and reached out to press a button at the entrance of the passage. "This is?" Cheng Xueme's pupils shrunk as she watched the closed passage crack open, revealing a space that looked like a cabin inside. There were even 2 activated robots at the entrance. "It's called the subaquatic corvette," said Tan Xiao lightly. "I gave it a new name. Didn't you notice that we came here without a hitch? To tell you the truth, the entire base is under my control and all the programs have been set up by me. Now, this is the only entrance and exit in the entire relic that can be opened. The rest are all closed, and the people from other countries have already left. We don't have a submarine to pick us up, so we can only leave by the subaquatic corvette." "What?" Cheng Xueme exclaimed and looked at Tan Xiao in disbelief. Tan Xiao stepped into the subaquatic corvette and indifferently said, "Don't make a fuss. You know too little about some things, so I'll explain them to you later. You're no longer an ordinary person, and the path you'll take in the future has completely changed." Cheng Xueme shot a complicated look at Tan Xiao. After she stepped into the subaquatic corvette's cabin, the exit passage was closed again, and even the door of the subaquatic corvette slowly closed. Tan Xiao found the control room and quickly entered a series of commands. As the subaquatic corvette began to sail on the seabed, Tan Xiao returned to the main cabin and looked at Han Qingwu with a complicated expression, saying, "Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Tan Xiao, an immortal cultivator." "An immortal cultivator?" Cheng Xueme's body trembled. She suddenly seemed to realize something and quickly said, "I've only heard of Taoist cultivators, but I've never heard of an immortal cultivator." "That's because you don't know much," said Tan Xiao lightly. "As a matter of fact, immortal cultivators and Taoist cultivators are essentially the same. It's just that immortal cultivators are at a higher level than Taoist cultivators. What I practice is immortal cultivation, not Taoist." Suppressing the shock inside, Cheng Xueme nodded and said, "No wonder you've become so powerful. It turns out that you're an immortal cultivator. Now I completely understand it." Chapter 790. The subaquatic corvette's speed was extremely fast. In just a few minutes, it had sailed to the sea area thousands of miles away from Haiben Island. After the exploration of the instrument, it surfaced near a desolate island. "It's here." Tan Xiao stepped out of the hatch and stepped on the calm sea surface as he landed on the island step by step. Cheng Xueme, who was standing at the door of the cabin, had a look of disbelief in her eyes. Although she had become an ability user, it was impossible for her to walk on the surface of the water as if it was flat ground. "Come." Cheng Xueme took a deep breath and waved her hand. Earth elements quickly condensed on the island and extended to the cabin door. As she stepped out, she stepped on it and came to Tan Xiao's side. "How are you going to help me?" Tan Xiao took out a gravity suit from his interspatial ring and handed it to Cheng Xueme, saying, "Put it on and run on the island. You need to run for 2 hours a day without stopping. Afterward, I'll spar with you so that you can gradually familiarize yourself with your own power." Cheng Xueme was already accustomed to Tan Xiao taking things out of thin air. She nodded and directly put on the suit, which was similar to a mecha suit. Then, she asked with a confused expression, "What's the use of this suit?" Tan Xiao faintly smiled and pressed his hand on her shoulder. As the red number appeared, the number on it began to change. "This is..." Cheng Xueme was shocked. She could clearly feel that the clothes she was wearing were becoming heavier and heavier. As the number increased, the weight became heavier and heavier. In just a few seconds, even though she was full of strength, she was still forced to kneel on the ground by the increased gravity. Tan Xiao pressed her shoulder again and the gravity was immediately maintained at the same level. Then he said, "This is a gravity suit with a maximum gravity of 36 times. The gravity you're now withstanding is 12 times, and I think it should be the limit you can bear. Under this gravity, you'll slowly try to walk and then run. When you can run as fast as you can, you'll have completed the first stage." "Shall I start now?" Cheng Xueme asked in disbelief. "Time is money, and wasting it is shameful." Tan Xiao nodded. "So, let's start now. I will always be by your side to supervise. Don't disappoint me." Cheng Xueme had a strong will in her bones. Hearing Tan Xiao's words, she struggled to get up from the ground, took a few deep breaths, and then tried to move her legs. Bang! Taking a step forward, Cheng Xueme was unable to control her own strength under the pressure of the 12-fold gravity. Her body swayed a little, and then she fell heavily to the side. "Get up and continue." Bang! Get up and continue. Bang! Get up. It was a simple walk, but Cheng Xueme was like a toddler learning to walk. She tried her best to maintain her balance and lifted her legs with all her might. She fell over and over again and got up again and again. Although the process was full of pain, she still gritted her teeth and persevered. An hour and a half later, Cheng Xueme panted heavily and was drenched in sweat. Her complexion was flushed, and blue veins could be faintly seen on her forehead. At this moment, she had nearly reached her limit. She had consumed too much strength in her body, and she felt a faint pain as though she was being pricked by needles. Can I take a break?" After falling again, Cheng Xueme didn't immediately get up. Instead, she raised her beautiful face to look at Tan Xiao and asked. There was a bit of pain in her eyes, as well as a bit of expectation. "No." Tan Xiao indifferently refused. Only by going through the bitterness of hardship can one become a superior person. You need to greatly improve your physical strength, but you also need to challenge your own limits and stimulate your own potential. There's still half an hour left, so you must persist. Cheng Xueme clenched her fists and gritted her teeth as she struggled to stand up. Her body was trembling, and there were some tears of grievance in her eyes as she struggled to walk again. After an hour and a half of hard work, she had made some progress. At the very least, she could maintain her body's balance and walk slowly, but her speed was not as fast as an adult's normal walk. 3 steps later, under extreme fatigue, she lost control of her body's balance again and heavily fell to the ground. "Get up," Tan Xiao coldly said with his hands behind his back. The tears in Cheng Xueme's eyes finally overflowed. She struggled to get up again. This time, it took her nearly half a minute to get up. Step forward. Step forward. Fall down. After repeating this more than a dozen times, there were only about 10 minutes left before the 2 hours were up. She panted heavily and slumped on the ground. She tried to get up several times but failed. But at this moment, the pain in her body gradually turned numb, and there was even a faint itch. I can't do it anymore. Can't you let me rest? The firm and resolute expression on Cheng Shuemei's face finally disappeared completely, and a pitiful look appeared on her beautiful face as she asked, "If you want to waste time, then forgive me for not accompanying you," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "If you don't want to control your own power as soon as possible and become more powerful, then you can rest. Cheng Shuemei, you used to be a police officer, and in my opinion, you're quite a strong one. At least, you dared to accept the national mission and risked your life alone in Japan. That's why I can see your potential." The pitiful expression on Cheng Shuemei's face slowly disappeared. She angrily glared at Tan Xiu. Even though she knew that he was deliberately provoking her, she still slowly got up. Step forward. Fall down. Finally, after experiencing 3 more falls and getting up, her itchy body felt as if it had been injected with a warm current, and this warm current made her feel a little less stressed. This time, she walked 7 or 8 steps before the warm current dissipated and fell down. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes. Seeing that Cheng Shuemei wanted to get up from the ground again, he immediately strode toward her and threw a human meridian chart in front of her. Then, he lightly said, "I'll give you 2 hours to rest. During this time, try to remember the meridian routes and acupoints clearly. If you can do it, I'll teach you an immortal cultivation technique. But if you can't, then you'll have to increase the training time by half an hour next time." Cheng Shuemei couldn't help but shiver. 2 hours was enough to make her wish she was dead. Adding another half an hour would simply torture her to death. "I'll do my best." Whether it was for the immortal cultivation technique or not to increase the training time by half an hour, she made up her mind to do her best to memorize it. 2 hours later, a smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he asked, "Have you memorized it yet?" Cheng Shuemei suddenly looked up and hurriedly asked, "Is the time up?" Replied Tan Xiu with a nod. The corner of Cheng Shuemei's mouth twitched a few times. She bitterly shook her head and said, "There are too many meridian routes and acupoints on this human meridian chart. I can't even remember half of them." Tan Xiu took out a porcelain bottle and threw it in front of Cheng Shuemei. He lightly smiled and said, "It's already very good that you can remember nearly half of it. Tomorrow's training will last for 2.5 hours, not even a minute less. This porcelain bottle contains body refining liquid. You can take a bath in the subaquatic corvette. Pour a drop of it in some water and soak it for half an hour. Then, come out and start the next training." Cheng Shuemei opened her mouth. She wanted to tell Tan Xiu that she hadn't fully rested yet. But after realizing that Tan Xiu wouldn't change his mind, she could only suppress her anger, get up from the ground, and walk step by step towards the subaquatic corvette. At this time, only then did she realize that the 2-hour gravity training every day was just a joke. It took her 2 hours to come here from the coastline where the subaquatic corvette was docked, and the return journey was the same. Without lifting the gravity training, she would have to spend another 2 hours. She might even need more time since her physical strength hadn't fully recovered. Shameless. Cheng Shuemei cursed inwardly, but she still gritted her teeth and went back the way she came. Tan Xiu still followed Cheng Shuemei unhurriedly, watching her fall, climb up, and walk again and again. The smile on his face was getting wider and wider. Finally, after 2.5 hours, Cheng Shuemei finally returned to the subaquatic corvette. Tan Xiu untied the gravity suit for her and watched her enter the subaquatic corvette. Only then did he suddenly remember that Cheng Shuemei didn't know how to use the bathing system in the subaquatic corvette. In desperation, he had to follow her in and personally fill a pool of water for Cheng Shuemei. He also poured a drop of body-tempering potion into it before leaving. The next half hour was even more painful for Cheng Shuemei. The body-tempering potion changed her physique, but it also made her eyes red with pain. Very comfortable? After soaking, Cheng Shuemei left the bath. As soon as she put on her clothes, she felt that all the pain had disappeared and was replaced by a comfortable feeling from the inside to the outside. She could even feel that her strength, which had been completely consumed, was quickly recovering. Tan Xiao sat in the rest area of the subaquatic corvette. There was some food on the table in front of him, which he had taken out of his space ring. I've changed my mind. Let's eat first. After eating and drinking, I'll give you 4 hours to sleep. After that, we'll start the second training. Cheng Xuemei's stomach was already rumbling with hunger. When she saw the food on the table, she immediately rushed over and wolfed it down. Then she patted her belly and burped in satisfaction. There's a bed next door. I've already made the bedding. I'll wake you up in 4 hours. After saying that, Tan Xiao got up and walked towards the cabin door of the subaquatic corvette. It's only been 4 hours. Cheng Xuemei muttered in dissatisfaction and then quickly walked towards the next room. She realized that the following training would not be easy, so she needed to seize the time to rest. After a short training, she could feel that her control over her own strength had improved a lot. At the very least, she wouldn't be unable to control herself and randomly bump into things during normal movements. Chapter 791. Jingmen Island. In the dining area of the Everlasting Feast Hall, Duanmu Lin held a cup of God's nectar and sniffed its pure fragrance with an intoxicated expression on his old face. In front of him, Gu Xiaoxue, dressed in a white dress, looked like a pure and clean saintess as she quietly looked at the scene outside the window. The best wine indeed lives up to its reputation. Just the smell alone is enough to arouse my appetite. Little Shui, this old man should have no problem ordering a batch of God's nectar from your Everlasting Feast Hall, right? Duanmu Lin smilingly looked at Gu Xiaoxue and asked. Gu Xiaoxue turned her head and shook her head. Since you like it, why would you order God's nectar from our Everlasting Feast Hall? The magnificent Tang Corporation should be your target, no? Duanmu Lin couldn't help laughing and said, I do want to order from the magnificent Tang Corporation, but that brat, Tan Xiao, has a deep background. I can't bully him even if I want to. I think so. Your Everlasting Feast Hall and the magnificent Tang Corporation should have a deep relationship, so there's no difference between me ordering from you and the magnificent Tang Corporation, right? Gu Xiaoxue slightly furrowed her brows and lightly said, I don't know what you mean by the relationship. Duanmu Lin smilingly said, I know the rules of the magnificent Tang Corporation, but you can get God's nectar so easily. Don't tell me you really have no relationship with them? Gu Xiaoxue was silent for a moment and slowly said, Why do you ask when you already know the answer? He's my grandmaster, so I believe this matter can't be concealed from you, no? Duanmu Lin shot a meaningful look at Gu Xiaoxue and nodded. I know, but what I want to know is who your master is. Who was the one who founded the Everlasting Feast Hall? I may be addressed as Little Boss by the people in the Everlasting Feast Hall, but there are at least 5 people who have a higher status than me if we're talking about status. Do you think I dare to tell you since my master doesn't want to deal with the authorities? Duanmu Lin squinted his eyes. A glint flashed in his eyes as he gulped down the cup of God's nectar. At this moment, a stalwart man strode down the stairs and stood in front of Duanmu Lin. He looked at Gu Xiaoxue with vigilance and then whispered in Duanmu Lin's ear, There's news from Haiben Island. Out of the 5 people who entered the 3-star vestige, 4 came out alive. They had the most number of people among the first 3 countries to come out, and they also gained the most. Duanmu Lin slammed his palm on the table, his aged face filled with excitement. Even though he was in front of Gu Xiaoxue, he still hurriedly asked, 4 of them came out alive? Who was the person who sacrificed himself in the ruins? Tan Xiao. The muscular man no longer lowered his voice. Duanmu Lin's excited expression instantly froze, his eyes bursting with disbelief. Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting opposite him, heard the conversation between the stalwart man and Duanmu Lin clearly. In a flash, she suddenly stood up and shouted, What did you say? Where did you say my grand master sacrificed himself? The stalwart man frowned. Although he was amazed by Gu Xiaoxue's beauty and temperament, he didn't give any answer. Duanmu Lin's face turned gloomy and he waved to the stalwart man. After the stalwart man left, he took a deep breath and slowly said, Is Tan Xiao very close to your Everlasting Feast Hall? Grand Master's life is more important than mine, said Gu Xiaoxue coldly. His life is more important than anyone's life in our everlasting feast hall. Duanmu Lin's brows furrowed deeper, and a worried feeling grew inside his heart. Originally, he knew that things would be troublesome when he heard the news of Tan Xiu's death. Even the Tang family would take action, and if the everlasting feast hall were to join the fray, it would be even more troublesome. Gu Xiaoxue shot a deep look at Duanmu Lin and shouted in a deep voice, "Shadow, go tell Master that Grand Master is in danger in Haiben Island." Understood. Only the voice could be heard, but no one could be seen. The air fluctuated for a while before calmness was restored again. Duanmu Lin's complexion changed. Although he knew that many people in the everlasting feast hall practiced martial arts, and some of them even had unfathomable cultivation, the person who just answered him had an absolutely terrifying strength. Even a martial arts grandmaster might not necessarily have such a mysterious and unfathomable concealment ability. Could it be that he's also an ability user? Duanmu Lin couldn't help but re-evaluate the power of the everlasting feast hall. At the imperial capital. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, Tang Guoxing was sitting comfortably on a rattan chair while tasting the fragrant tea in front of him. Tang Min, who rarely had the time, chatted with him. "Dad, your grandson is really a talent. He's really decisive in dealing with the Qingyuan group in Miss Source Island, and the one who benefited the most is his future wife, Mu Weining. Weining just returned to Shanghai from Mist Source Island last night. She called me and said that she'll come to Shanghai to visit you and Mom in a few days," said Tang Min with a beaming smile while drinking a cup of fragrant tea. A satisfied smile hung on Tang Guoxing's old face as he nodded and said, "Why would he push away the benefits when he can? He handled it well, very well. Even if that brat of the Mu family doesn't feel happy, won't he still have to look at Xiu's face in the future? It's just a pity that Xiu is still too young. I can't wait to pass the patriarch position to him in 8 or 10 years. I reckon that even if you want to pass the patriarch position to Xiu, he won't accept it," said Tang Min with a smile. "How can a sparrow and a swallow know the ambition of a great swan? To be honest, even I don't know what Xiu is ultimately plotting. But I'm sure that it will definitely be beyond our imagination. Don't exaggerate." Tang Guoxing couldn't help but laugh. Could it be that he's also plotting for immortality? Tang Min's expression moved and she said with a faint smile, "I think it's reasonable even if he's plotting for immortality. Don't forget that he's an immortal cultivator. An immortal cultivator can live for a very long time as long as he cultivates to a very high level." The smile on Tang Guoxing's face slowly receded. He was silent for a long while before he said in a deep voice, "If he dares to plot for immortality, my Tang family is willing to give him a hand even if we have to risk everything. Immortality key. Even if he can live for hundreds of years, our Tang family can become the real #1 family in China. I'm afraid we won't be weaker than those foreign families that have been established for hundreds of years. If Xiu can really live for hundreds of years, then I'll be basking in his glory," said Tang Min with a smile. At this moment, the ringtone of a mobile phone on the table interrupted Tang Min's words. Tang Guoxing grabbed the phone and looked at the name on the screen. His expression suddenly moved as he picked up the call and smilingly said, "Brother Duanmu, could it be that the exploration of the 3-star vestige is over? Xiu didn't do anything earth-shattering, did he?" Tan Xiu sacrificed himself. Duanmu Lin's bitter voice came from the phone. "What did you say?" Tang Guoxing stared blankly for a moment before he suddenly jumped from the rattan chair and shouted sternly, "Cut the crap, Duanmu Lin. I know better than anyone else how capable my grandson is. I dare say that no one in this world who can kill him has been born yet. I just received the news that all the passages to the 3-star vestige have been completely sealed. Only members from 3 countries have come out of the vestige alive," said Duanmu Lin helplessly. "They are from Huaxia, Japan, and South Korea respectively. The other 4 members of our 5-man team all came out alive. Only Tan Xiu, he didn't come out. I heard from the team captain, Zhu Long, that after the 5 of them went deep into the vestige, Tan Xiu proposed to act alone. Later on, his whereabouts were unknown." Tang Guoxing panted heavily and angrily shouted, "That's impossible. I absolutely don't believe that my grandson died in that trifling 3-star vestige. Where you now? I'll go there immediately. Duanmu Lin hesitated for a moment before he helplessly said, I'm on the way to Haiban Island. The other countries that didn't come out alive will find it hard to accept the result of the exploration of the vestige, so I need to go there to solve it. Haiban Island, right? Wait for me. Tang Guoxing hung up the phone and fiercely kicked the table in front of him. Then, he roared, gather all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads and immediately follow me to Haiban Island. Tell them that their chances of coming back alive are nearly 0 if they leave with me this time. Instantly, the blood drained from Tang Min's face. She had heard a lot of grievous news in her life, but this one had never given her such a big impact. My nephew sacrificed himself? Impossible! Tang Min roared inwardly as she turned around and ran outside. At the same time, 2 burly middle-aged men exuding a valiant aura rushed out from the corner of the courtyard. Without any hesitation, they also rushed outside the courtyard. 10 minutes later, dozens of cars appeared in the vicinity of the Tang family's ancestral residence. A stocky man in a black training suit got into the car. Accompanied by Tang Min, Tang Guoxing strode into a car. As the car's door closed, dozens of cars roared and drove away. The Tang family's clansmen everywhere received the news that the old patriarch flew into a rage for some unknown reason and left with all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads. For a time, all the Tang family's clansmen were shocked and rushed toward the Tang family's ancestral residence without stopping. They were perfectly aware that the Tang family's most secretive 1st and 2nd Guardian squads were the Tang family's most powerful defense team. In the past, only when the Tang family was in the most dangerous and critical juncture would all the members of these 2 squads be dispatched. Could it be, did the Tang family encounter a serious life and death crisis? However, before they arrived at the Tang family's ancestral residence, another news came. The old patriarch issued an order that all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads would have 0 chance of coming back alive this time. This is the Iron Order of the Death Sworn. Chapter 792. The Tang family's Death Warrior Iron Order was a special order. Once the Tang family's patriarch issued the order, all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads would have the opportunity to withdraw. If they chose not to withdraw, they would have to face the crisis of life and death together with the Tang family's patriarch. At this moment, all the core members of the Tang family trembled. They realized that something big had happened to the Tang family. Moreover, this was the 4th time since the Tang family had been established that it had faced a life and death crisis. Half a day later, all the big shots in the imperial capital had received the news of the Tang family's unusual movements. For a time, the big shots of various forces continuously sent intelligence personnel to figure out what happened to the Tang family and why Tang Guoxing left the Tang family and the imperial capital with great fanfare. In the vast sea, a liner was braving the wind and waves as it rushed toward the Strait of Malacca. Inside a beautifully decorated room in the cabin, Duanmu Lin's brows were tightly furrowed. He had received the news from the imperial capital that Tang Guoxing was coming with a large number of people. Boss, there's a fishing boat ahead. According to the signal released from there, it's our people. A short middle-aged man in a training suit quickly appeared in the room. Duanmu Lin's expression shifted and he strode out of the room. When he came to the bow deck, he saw Zhu Long's group of 4 standing on the approaching fishing boat. Duanmu Lin's mood was very complicated. China had won a great victory this time and got the most benefits, which made him excited and pleasantly surprised. But Tan Xiao couldn't come out of the 3-star vestige alive, which made him a bit sad and helpless. Boss. As the liner and fishing boat approached, Zhu Long, Fire Devil, Electro Lady, and Aquababe jumped on the liner and respectfully greeted Duanmu Lin. Duanmu Lin nodded and said in a deep voice, "You did a great job, even better than I expected. But now is not the time to know about the spoils of war. Tell me, what's the situation with Tan Xiao? Can we talk about something happy, boss?" Zhu Long forced a smile. "Do you think I don't want to talk about something happy? Duan Mulin helplessly said. Now, the Tang family was ready to make a move, and Tang Guosheng personally led a large group of people here. Besides, there's also the everlasting feast hall that I can't figure out. With all these troubles added together, it will be hard for me to explain if I can't handle it well. The Tang family? What does this have to do with the Tang family? Asked Zhu Long with a frown. Duan Mulin said, Tan Xiao is Tang Guosheng's grandson. What do you think? Zhu Long's expression changed slightly, and even Fire Devil, Electro Lady, and Aquababe couldn't help changing their expressions. If it was in the past, they would not have cared about the Tang family. After all, for ability users like them who possessed miraculous powers, ordinary families would not pose much of a threat to them no matter how powerful they were. However, ever since the Manchurian tiger was eliminated by the Tang family and the Yao family was destroyed by the Tang family, they didn't dare to look down on the Tang family even though they were paranormals. After all, the Manchurian tiger was a renowned cultivator, and the Yao clan was filled with experts. From this, it could be seen that the Tang family's resources were unfathomable. What kind of force is the Everlasting Feast Hall, boss? Why haven't I heard of it before? Zhu Long took a deep breath to calm his mind and asked. The Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is in Jingmen Island, said Duan Mulin. On the surface, it's just a restaurant with a few branches, but it has a very terrifying force in the background. Just from my observation, I can tell that the Everlasting Feast Hall has a lot of martial artists, and many of them are at least at the level of martial arts grandmaster. Further, the founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall is very mysterious, and even I can't figure out who he is. Zhu Long's expression shifted and he quickly asked, But what? The founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall is Tan Xiao's disciple, said Duan Mulin helplessly. Zhu Long and the other three gasped at the same time. After a long while, Zhu Long hurriedly said, So to say, the Everlasting Feast Hall is actually a force of the Tang family? That's exactly what makes me feel uneasy. Duan Mulin shook his head. The Everlasting Feast Hall doesn't belong to the Tang family at all. I've sent people to investigate for a long time, but they have yet to find any connection between them. If I must say that there is a connection between them, then it's Tan Xiao. Suddenly, a surging momentum covered the sky and covered the earth. The dozens of ability users on the liner, including Duan Mulin and Zhu Long's group of 4, all had their complexions greatly changed. They felt as though a mountain was pressing down on their heads, and it only lasted for half a second before they knelt on the ground and propped their hands on the ground. Like a fairy from the 9th heaven who had descended to the mortal world, Guyan was also clad in a white dress, but there was a faint mature temperament exuding from her. When she appeared on the liner's deck with Gu Xiaoxue, even Duan Mulin, who possessed an extremely powerful ability, was oppressed and couldn't lift his head. I, Gu Yen, am Tan Xiao's disciple, and also his most beloved disciple. The Everlasting Feast Hall is just a small business that I casually established. Tempestuous waves rose inside Duan Mulin's heart, along with an intense fear. He was very strong. In fact, if he were to attack, even the Manchurian tiger that had been killed might not be a match for him. However, the strength of the newcomer had already exceeded the scope of his understanding. He wanted to raise his head, but he found that his body had been imprisoned by the imposing aura. No matter how much strength he exerted, he couldn't lift his head even half a bit. He wanted to speak, but he found that he couldn't even make a sound. He couldn't even move his throat. He felt that he was like an ant, and the person who had just arrived was like a towering mountain that was tens of thousands of feet tall. A bit of killing intent could be seen in Gu Yenner's eyes. After restraining the aura she released, she gently stretched out her hand. Suddenly, a stream of energy wrapped around Duan Mulin's neck, lifting him up and hanging him in front of her. Then, she coldly said, "Tell me everything about my master entering the 3-star vestige. If you dare to utter even half a word of lies, I'll kill all of you." Duan Mulin desperately struggled a few times, only to find that he couldn't break free at all. With no other choice, he could only grab the stream of energy and awkwardly said, "It's true that I invited Tan Xiao to participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige, but I didn't expect that he would be in danger." The ones who participated in the 3-star vestige were 4 of my men, so maybe they can explain it in more detail than I can. Gu Yen flicked her fingers and threw Duan Mu Lin on the deck. Then, she shifted her eyes to Zhu Long's group of 4 and indifferently said, "It's you?" Zhu Long's group of 4 crawled up from the deck, trembling with fear. Although they were shocked by Gu Yen's beauty, they didn't dare to have the slightest blasphemous thought. Zhu Long respectfully bowed and saluted. Then, with a pale face, he said, "Senior, we did participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige with Tan Xiu. It's like this." After hearing Zhu Long's narration, Gu Yen finally figured out the whole story. Afterward, she coldly glanced at Duan Mu Lin and indifferently said, "You're just a bunch of little guys who are blessed by heaven and have mastered some small abilities. You simply don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. It's your luck that my master can go with you to explore the 3-star vestige. Remember, you're not allowed to investigate the Everlasting Feast Hall in the future, nor do you care about the existence of the Everlasting Feast Hall. We don't care about politics, nor do we care about the country. In my eyes, the most important thing is my master. If any of you dare to disturb my master or find trouble with us again, I won't mind destroying you." Having said that, she took Gu Xiaoxue and instantly disappeared from the liner's deck. On the liner's deck, the shock inside Duan Mu Lin's heart hadn't dissipated for a long time. He stared at the spot where Gu Yen'er just stood. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Finally, "Do you believe in immortals in this world, boss?" asked Zhu Long with a complicated expression. Duan Mu Lin slowly turned his head and was silent for a while before saying bitterly, "I would never believe it if it were before. But at this moment, I have no choice but to believe it. Boss, that Gu Yen'er claims to be Tan Xiu's disciple, but we've seen Tan Xiu's strength. He's indeed very strong, but compared to that Gu Yen'er, he's worlds apart," said Zhu Long. "What exactly is going on here? Also, I'm guessing that this Gu Yen'er is a cultivator, and one with an extremely terrifying cultivation. So, Tan Xiu is also a cultivator?" "You guessed it right." Duan Mu Lin nodded. "Tan Xiu is indeed a cultivator. This is also the main reason why I invited him to participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige. Legend has it that when a cultivator's cultivation reaches the peak, they will have to face the heavenly tribulation. If they can successfully cross the tribulation, they will be able to break the shackles and tear the space to ascend to a higher level, the immortal world. I used to think of this legend as a fairy tale, but now it seems that it's very likely to be true." Hiss Zhu Long's group of 4 sucked in a cold breath at the same time. They felt that if Duan Mu Lin's guess was correct, then the Everlasting Feast Hall was definitely a terrifying existence. They could even rule the entire Earth with ease, right? If Tan Xiu wanted to rule the entire Earth now, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for him? They recalled Gu Yen'er's terrifying strength and the identity of Tan Xiu mentioned by Gu Yen. For a moment, intense fear was birthed inside their hearts. If Tan Xiu really had such an idea, then Duan Mu Lin also had the same worry, but what made him feel better was that Gu Yen'er had just made it clear that she didn't care about politics or the country. As for Tan Xiu, he didn't seem to be an ambitious person. Otherwise, wouldn't he be able to become the ruler of China if he wanted to? Countless thoughts flashed in Duan Mu Lin's mind. After a long time, he calmly looked at the dozens of fearful ability users under his command and said in a deep voice, "Convey my order. No one from any department is allowed to provoke Tan Xiu, the Everlasting Feast Hall, the magnificent Tang Corporation, and the Tang family of the imperial capital from now on." Chapter 793. The vast sea was surging with turbulent waves. Gu Yen'er suppressed her cultivation to a very low level. Even though she revealed her strength in front of Duan Mu Lin and the others, she only revealed less than 1% of her aura. Even so, she could faintly sense the fluctuation of the heavenly Tao aura and the threat it brought to her. Flying high in the air, her spiritual sense continuously spread out. Even under the suppression of the heavenly Tao, her spiritual sense could still cover a radius of 500 kilometers. "Will Grand Master really encounter danger, Master?" Gu Xiaoshue's eyes were full of worry and her heart was extremely depressed. She didn't even realize that her worry for Tan Xiao had caused problems in her Dao heart, which she had tempered for many years. It could be said that her mind was already in a mess. I believe in him. He has a way to survive even if the entire earth is destroyed, said Gu Yen coldly. Because he's my master. Gu Xiaoxue calmed down a bit and asked, then, are we going directly to the 3-star vestige? You should be able to reopen it, right? I know about the several forces in the universe whose technological civilizations have developed to the peak. They also have very strong armed forces, said Gu Yen, indifferently. But 3-star civilizations are pitifully weak in the universe. At my peak, I can destroy a 3-star civilization with a flick of my finger. Gu Xiaoshue's heart trembled and she asked the last question she was worried about. Can your body withstand it? Gu Yen calmly nodded and calmly said, it won't affect me for a short time. Don't worry about it. Suddenly, Gu Yen's expression shifted and she instantly sped up with Gu Xiaoxue, flying toward the southeast about 500 kilometers away. In just a few breaths, she appeared on a desolate island. On the island, Tan Xiao blocked Cheng Xueme's attack without batting an eyelid. Although Cheng Xueme's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, she couldn't bring the slightest threat to Tan Xiao. At this moment, Cheng Xueme was already sweating profusely. She gritted her teeth and attacked with all her might. If she continued to attack at this level, she would fall to the ground due to exhaustion in a few minutes. Stop! Tan Xiao instantly dodged Cheng Xueme's attack and appeared beside her. He pressed his right hand heavily on Cheng Xueme's shoulder and looked at Gu Yener and Gu Xiaoxue who appeared nearby. Why are you guys here? When Gu Xiaoxue saw Tan Xiao clearly, a look of surprise appeared on her beautiful face. She rushed over and shouted, Grand Master, it's great that you're fine. Tan Xiao was stunned. His gaze shifted from Gu Xiaoxue to Gu Yener. When he released Cheng Xueme's shoulder, he asked, what happened? Gu Yen strode forward and was already standing in front of Tan Xiao. With a smile on her beautiful face, she skillfully held Tan Xiao's arm and said, Duanmu Lin of the State Special Abilities Bureau is spouting nonsense, saying that you died in the 3-star vestige. We were about to rush there to find you, but we didn't expect you to be flirting with a beauty here. Tan Xiao sniffed the special fragrance of Gu Yener and let her hold his arm. Then he smilingly said, Duanmu Lin is spouting nonsense. Why are you spouting nonsense too? Anyways, let me introduce you. This is Cheng Xueme, a friend I've known since I regained consciousness. Due to special reasons, she participated in the exploration of the 3-star vestige on behalf of Japan and obtained the memory and power of an intelligent plant. It's a pity that she can't control her sudden increase in power, so I took some time to train her and help her control her power. Gu Yener immediately understood and nodded to Cheng Xueme with a smile. Then she said, do you want me to help you train her, master? Tan Xiao didn't answer the question and instead asked, you came out like this. How's your injury? It's just that I came out for a short time, so it's not a big problem. Gu Yener chuckled and said, at most, it'll just delay my recuperation time. I'm relieved as long as you're safe and sound. Tan Xiao thought for a moment before he slowly shook his head and said, the sooner your injury heals, the sooner I can feel at ease. I'm fine here, so you can rest assured. Listen to me and immediately return to Jingmen Island to recuperate. I'll help Cheng Xueme control her power and then I'll go to Jingmen Island to see you. Gu Yener thought for a while and suddenly said, I can go back, but let Xiaoxue stay to help you. Her strength has been progressing very fast recently and she's just a step away from breaking through to the golden core stage. Perhaps she can speed up her breakthrough if she stays by your side. Tang Xiao turned to look at the expectant Gu Xiaoxue. He then nodded and said, all right then. Let Xiaoxue stay. Despite saying that, Gu Yener didn't look like she wanted to leave. Her eyes looked at Tan Xiao's handsome face as if there was only Tan Xiao left in her world. Tan Xiao looked at her appearance and felt somewhat helpless inside. However, Gu Yener rushed over because she was worried about him, so he couldn't drive her away immediately. Therefore, he could only look at Gu Xiaoxue and said, you'll be Cheng Xueme's sparring partner until she's too tired to get up. Also, let her rest for 2 hours and then start running. She knows how to persevere. All right. Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded. Tan Xiao took Gu Yener to the subaquatic corvette and took out some stored fruits from his interspatial ring. Then he chuckled and said, "Have some fruits and chat." All right. Gu Yener took the fruits without hesitation. As clear water condensed in front of her, she directly washed the fruits in the clear water. Then she waved her hand to disperse the floating water and smilingly said, "Have an apple, master." On the deserted island, Cheng Xuemei's expression was a bit complicated as she watched Tan Xiao and Gu Yener leave. She wanted to call out to Tan Xiao several times, but every time the words reached her mouth, she swallowed them back. The more she saw through Tan Xiao, the more mysterious he became. "Let's go." Gu Xiaoxue smiled and calmly looked at Cheng Xuemei. Cheng Xuemei nodded silently. 2 mud dragons instantly rushed out and wrapped around Gu Xiaoxue's bare feet. The mud energy in all directions formed mud spikes and shot toward Gu Xiaoxue. At the same time, Cheng Xuemei dashed toward Gu Xiaoxue. Her seemingly light punch contained tremendous power. What a pity! Cheng Xuemei thought that after a few minutes of rest, she had recovered some of her strength and could easily knock down the girl in front of her. But the result made her expression drastically change. Gu Xiaoxue's legs trembled and a wave of qi instantly burst out from her legs. Almost in an instant, the 2 mud dragons were shattered and lost their binding effect. The mud needles that shot from all directions were also smashed by Gu Xiaoxue with a wave of her hand. Bam! Cheng Xuemei's fist was easily caught by Gu Xiaoxue. With a gentle push, Cheng Xuemei's body retreated more than 10 meters and staggered to stabilize her figure. "She's so strong." Cheng Xuemei was shocked. She never thought that Gu Xiaoxue, who seemed to be younger than her, would have such a powerful strength. Although her attack power was only 60% to 70% of her peak, it was like child's play in the eyes of her opponent. "Let's continue." Gu Xiaoxue chuckled. Cheng Xuemei gritted her teeth and moved again. A few minutes later, Cheng Xuemei finally fell to the ground due to exhaustion. She looked at Gu Xiaoxue, who was spotless and didn't even leave a stain on her white dress. She was completely convinced and asked, "Are all cultivators so powerful? I feel that my strength has increased dozens of times, yet I can't even beat Tan Xiao. Now, I'm so much weaker than you." "You're not weak, actually," said Gu Xiaoxue with a smile. "It's just that you don't seem to be able to fully use your own power. Grandmaster said that he'll find a way to let you control your own power, so I can be your sparring partner in the following days." "Thank you." Cheng Xuemei was grateful. "You don't need to thank me." Gu Xiaoxue smiled. "I'm just carrying out the task given to me by Grandmaster. If you want to thank someone, thank him." "That's right, how should I train you next?" Cheng Xuemei couldn't help laughing and said, "Let me rest. I'm too tired." After hesitating for a moment, Gu Xiaoxue nodded and said, "Then rest." Cheng Xuemei slowly sat cross-legged and took out the human meridian chart from her pocket. Then she began to seriously memorize every meridian and acupoint on it. Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. Tan Xiao said that if I can memorize all the meridians and acupoints on this human meridian chart, he'll teach me a set of immortal cultivation technique. Cheng Xuemei looked up and said. Gu Xiaoxue suddenly understood and said with a smile, "If that's the case, then I welcome you to join us." "Join you? What do you mean?" asked Cheng Xuemei curiously. "Didn't Grandmaster tell you that once you learn an immortal cultivation technique from him, you'll belong to our everlasting feast hall?" asked Gu Xiaoxue in astonishment. "No, he didn't." Cheng Xuemei shook her head. "It doesn't matter if he didn't tell you." Gu Xiaoxue smiled and said, "In short, just remember it. Your background and foundation will be our everlasting feast hall in the future. You must not betray us and must obey the orders of the everlasting feast hall's top brass. Of course, the most distinguished person in our everlasting feast hall is you, Grandmaster." Cheng Xuemei was silent for a moment and then slowly said, "I used to be a policewoman, but I'm now a member of the Special Abilities Bureau. I've never thought about joining the Everlasting Feast Hall. I'm afraid that the leaders of the Special Abilities Bureau won't agree to it. A touch of disdain appeared on Gu Xiaoshue's face as she indifferently said, "Would your Special Abilities Bureau's people dare to disagree? We met someone from your Special Abilities Bureau on the way here. Although I don't know what status that old man surnamed Duanmu has in the Special Abilities Bureau, I'm afraid he won't dare to be an enemy of the Everlasting Feast Hall for the rest of his life." "What do you mean?" asked Qing Xueme with a puzzled expression. "Master can destroy the entire Special Abilities Bureau with a flick of his finger if he wants to," said Gu Xiaoxue with a faint smile. "If Grandmaster agrees, all the ability users in the Special Abilities Bureau will turn into ashes in a flash." Just now, dozens of ability users from the Special Abilities Bureau knelt in front of my master and couldn't even lift their heads. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.